Psst, we've got something to tell you about the Honda Jazz. We know it looks small, but inside, it's really big. That's why we've created the small but big Jazz event, where you can get 0% APR representative and 5 years complimentary servicing on all grades until the 31st of January. The Honda Jazz, the small car with the big offer. Visit your local dealer to find out more. Honda dealers are credit brokers, not lenders. Finance provided by Honda Finance Europe, authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Terms and conditions apply.
Having to deal with financial stuff can make you feel... ah! But at Money Supermarket, we make you feel... ah. That's because we go further to help you get money car. We don't just compare. We cut prices to help you get better car insurance deals. Get money car. Money Supermarket.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Today's big number. $976,308,000,000. That's how much the market caps of Apple and Microsoft grew collectively in the past year. The two companies accounted for 15% of the S&P's total gain in 2019.
Let's talk markets now. As Wall Street gets ready to kick off the first trading day of the new year, joining us for that is Simeon Hyman, Head of Investment Strategy at ProShares, and Tony Zhang, Chief Strategist for Options Play. Tony is also CNBC contributor. Tony, I'm not familiar with much of your work, but Options Play, what is long-term for you, and what is short-term, what's intermediate term? You have a really short-term perspective in general?
So on the very short term, I think most metrics are fairly overextended and overbought.
Well, that's what I'm getting. But I'm just asking you, what is the way that you approach things? Is it an option strategy? Yes. So it's very short term.
Correct.
All right. Why you see profit taking? Mm-hmm. That's what I think is the knee-jerk consensus.
Absolutely.
Opinion right now. We're up 200 or what at 160 today. So will you change that, or will you wait for it, or did you get something wrong, or is it possible that it happens tomorrow or next week?
So we're still looking at least 30 to 60 days out. If you look at where the VIX was trading in the last few trading sessions before the end of the year, we saw that spike in VIX despite us making new highs. So what that tells me is that traders are trying to buy some protection going into January and February.
Right. Okay. So that's what they were doing. Now, if this continues to go higher, do they cover?
Absolutely.
So cover and get out of the protection.
We already saw some of that during the close on Tuesday.
When do you expect to actually see profit taking then?
I would say in early January.
Okay, so and a pullback of 5 to 7% on the S&P.
I think 302 on the SPY or 3,000 on SPX is the level that we would be targeting to the downside.
Sometime in January.
Sometime in January to February.
Okay, you are pretty short-term oriented. Can you use option and VIX analysis to figure out 2020 overall for the year, or do you have an opinion there?
Well, VIX is a 30-day window, right. So not necessarily. You could look at longer-term options, but they don't trade very actively as much if you're looking at 2020. But absolutely, we're generally a little bit more short-term.
Okay, so what do you see for 2020?
So personally, I see a few different things. I see emerging markets is a big thing that I'm interested in. The other thing is actually the dollar. A big theme that I currently see is the dollar currently making a meaningful break below the 200-day moving average. I see some developing countries, FX, being a very big driver for 2020. Also, consumers. A big theme that I have right now is the fact that
when it's all said and done, what does that mean for the S&P for the year?
I think marginally higher.
Marginally higher. All right. Where are you, Samir?
I guess I'll take a swing at 2020. I think there's a hidden catalyst. First, from a business cycle standpoint, there's no signs of overheating. We've never had a recession without the capacity utilization index going over 80. We're at 77. So there's no overheating going on. But there's a hidden catalyst for earnings that I think people are forgetting about, and that's the big corporate tax cut we had. The corporate tax cut spiked gross profit margins from 9 to 10% in 2018. They went halfway down as that got passed to consumers last year. Now we don't have to anniversary that anymore. So last year you had 4% top line growth, 0 earnings growth. I think you could see at least mid-single digit earnings growth, and that should be enough for not 30% gains in the S&P, but something plausible.
So you do, one of your main points in your notes is that big cap stocks are not cheap at all.
That's right. I like looking, if you look at the Clinton impeachment period versus the Trump impeachment period, you get some kind of interesting comparisons. We forgot about that already?
What happened? What finally happened there? Do we know?
In Clinton,
the articles have
Trump?
not been sent to the Senate.
Yeah, we're still waiting.
That's it.
Yeah,
God, I just totally forgot.
But by the way, it was almost the same period of time. The House proceedings started in December as well for Clinton, so it's sort of it's nice. But in any event, we were.
I don't know if they're playing this right. I think you did it. Let's. We're not even talking about it. Mark's up 200 points. Are they going to? What's going to happen? They're
Depends
back
on what
now.
some of the Republican
January
senators
6th, they get back.
Well, remember, so if we go back to the previous impeachment, we know we had another 18 months of a roaring bull market.
He was in his second term, though.
And we were starting at 28 times earnings with 5% on the 2 years.
This is different because it's a first-term president.
So we're in a little bit of a different spot this time around. But look, if you're looking for bargains, I still say it's mid and small caps, with the challenge there that leverage increases as you go down in cap. Mid caps have double the leverage of the S&P 500. Small caps have triple. So if you're going down in cap, going up in quality is a good way to try to capture that discount, because even at 2021 times earnings, we're at relatively full valuations on large.
So you're in the crowd, mid to high single digits for 2020. Is that your forecast?
I'll take that, and I'll also concur with your emerging markets idea. You're at 50% discount on a price-to-book basis. If oil holds up, that's still a driver, even though people kind of don't look at it as much. Natural resources and commodity prices are relevant. And by the way, emerging market balance sheets, companies in emerging markets actually stronger than developed international.
All right, so the chances we go up 20% this year are what?
20% is a little high.
What are the chances?
I don't know. I'll give it a 1 in 4 shot that we're up 20%.
The chances we go down 20% are what?
1 in 10 chance.
This is where we can turn to options. You can look at option pricing and see where that 20% level, where options are pricing that. I would say in the 10 to 15% range.
There, okay. Well, as we get closer to the election, can I come to you to analyze predictit.org or predictit.com?
Absolutely. We look at option pricing to get a sense.
That's fun. Just to try and figure out the Dem nominee, who's going to, who gets the House, who gets the Senate, who gets the presidency. People bet on all that stuff.
Absolutely.
It's much better than polls.
Absolutely.
Polls are like, I don't think people ever answer honestly in polls. And it's cell phones now, they don't answer. And
markets are...
No one I don't recognize even gets through on my phone anymore. Right? Have you done that?
My phone still rings.
You still getting deals on credit cards that
I don't answer it. You're the one who picks it up and tries to talk to these people.
I do, because I say, yes, I want to transfer all my credit cards to you. Can I just...
Put you on hold for just a moment.
Yeah, can I put you on hold for just a second? Let me go get my 6 credit cards that I'm going to transfer all. I got $50,000 worth of credit balances that I owe on, and I'd like you to handle it all. Just hold on for a second, and then I leave.
If you joke, then you're still registering that you answered the phone, and you're going to get.
Then I get another one, and I get to do it all over again, and the same person waits on, who's never in this country, which is what I also don't understand. Those are internet phone calls, aren't they? And they come under fake numbers from Hackensack and from Morristown.
Yes.
And then if you ever call back the number, the guy goes, I didn't call you. I'm just some guy. I mean, it's like, this was like a criminal activity.
Well, there was just something signed against the robocalls. The Trump administration actually signed something earlier this week or the end of last week that it will only work, I think, if industry gets on board with some of these things. But I think industry is there and wants to stop this too, because nothing makes people cut their cord faster than getting a number of those calls coming into your house.
I get more calls about getting a warranty on my car that I sold 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They just need to charge those microtransactions that they're suggesting for these robocalls, and I think that would stop it immediately.
That's a good idea.
Because then
It's a
it puts
fraction
them out of
of a penny.
business.
Exactly.
Right.
Just change the economics.
All in favor.
How old are you, Tony, if you don't mind my asking? Because I need a millennial that I can talk to so I can understand a lot of this.
I'm 33.
Okay. Yeah, that's
a
like
millennial.
smack dab in the middle. Can you leave your contact information so I can just hit you up for certain stuff?
Absolutely.
You can?
Yeah.
You'll talk to a boomer?
I will.
And you won't talk down to me?
I promise I won't.
Okay. Because I get that a lot, Simeon. I'm not really sure why. Tony, thank you.
Thank you.
CNBC contributor, that's awesome. Simeon, we'll see you again soon.
All right, when we come back.
You know that tech stock we talked about?
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, plunges into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Tesla says it is set to deliver a second round of China-made Model 3 sedans to its customers. The company tells Reuters the delivery will happen on Tuesday at an event at the Shanghai factory. It adds that the customers are not Tesla employees, unlike those who received the first round of Model 3s from that plant. And Tesla shares, as you can see, up above 420, that number that was where the buyout was going to be, that started that cascade of all the negative publicity.
Funding secured.
Us all the way back. Yeah, funding secured.
Yeah.
Right? Highly confident.
It is now legal to buy marijuana in Illinois for recreational purposes. Hundreds of people lined up for hours early yesterday morning outside the new cannabis dispensaries in the Chicago area that opened at 6 a.m. Illinois is the 11th state to allow marijuana's use and sale for people ages 21 and older. Neighboring Michigan made it legal starting back on December 1st.
Coming up, we're learning more about the whole Carlos Ghosn escape from Japan and what he's planning next in Lebanon. Phil LeBeau joins us with that story. As we head to break, take a look at U.S. equity futures, solidly higher, but off their highs, up 142 on the Dow, another 16 on the S&P, and almost 60 on the NASDAQ. We're coming back.
Executive Edge is
the Honda Jazz, the car that feels fabulously small on the outside, yet deceptively big on the inside, with its incredible storage solutions and magic folding seats. Not to mention the suite of advanced safety features. And now with the small but big Jazz event, it's available with 0% APR representative and 5 years complimentary servicing until January 31st. Visit your local dealer to find out more. Honda dealers are credit brokers, not lenders. Finance provided by Honda Finance Europe, authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Terms and conditions apply.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, plunges into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and flows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Be better informed, be better prepared. The Better Network is on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search BETR and start hanging out with me and my guys in the desert weekday afternoons. The Better Network is now on TuneIn.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down. Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. And check this out on this first trading day of the year. You're looking at the Dow futures, indicated up by about 150 points. S&P futures up by 16 and the NASDAQ up by 59. We are near levels that would set new highs. Not quite there. We were earlier this morning, but you'd need a gain of about 163 points in the Dow to actually be opening the day at a new intraday high. We'll see where we get as we get a little closer to the opening bell.
And new details are emerging today over how former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn managed to skip out on bail in Japan and escaped to Lebanon. I think it was like $13 million. He's like,
okay,
not a lot for me. Phil LeBeau joins us now. It's part of the whole point, I guess. Phil, do you know, was it a base case or a harp case? Do you know anything? You got any details on that?
Well, and then the report was that they said, well, that's not how he got out of the country. Look, there are more weird stories out there about how Carlos Ghosn was able to get out of Japan than there are stories that have been actually confirmed by anybody. Because half the time you hear a report come out, and then a couple of hours later, well, that's not true. Somebody close to the Ghosn family says that's not true. So here's what we do know this morning regarding Carlos Ghosn's situation. And you can bet there will be more details over the next couple of days and more developments over the next couple of days. Let's start first off with Japan. Scrutiny there about how they were able to allow a guy under house arrest who had cameras, who had officers outside of his house, how they allowed him to get out of the country. By the way, they raided his house there today. The French government's in an awkward position. Yes, he is a French citizen. At the same time, the French government owns part of Renault, which is part of the Nissan-Renault alliance, which is very fragile right now. So how do they play this? And then you have Carlos Ghosn. He was welcomed in Beirut earlier this week. We did get a statement from Carlos Ghosn earlier this week where he said, I have not fled justice. I have escaped injustice and political persecution. I can now finally communicate freely with the media and look forward to starting next week. Exactly when we might hear from Carlos Ghosn next week remains to be seen. But here's the timeline. Think about it from Carlos Ghosn's perspective. Now, this is not saying what he did was correct or was right, but just from his perspective. He was arrested on November 19th. And yes, then he was stripped of his job with Nissan. Then he was indicted. But generally speaking, over the last 13 months, he has had limited, almost no conversations with his family, with his wife, and as a result, he clearly felt that the best move for him was to get out of that country. If you take a look at shares of Nissan Renault, we have yet to hear a formal comment from the company regarding Carlos Ghosn skipping bail and getting out of Japan. And the stock down 35% since his arrest back in November of 2018. It's a wild story, guys, and perhaps one of the more interesting things, Joe, is that you get these reports that are then denied, and then you get another wild report. I mean, these are all the little details that are going to be sorted out.
The family's not necessarily going to confirm anything, right? Like, they may be shooting down some of these things, but I'm not sure that they would tell the truth anyway about what happened. It's not like they're saying, here's how he got out.
Correct. And that's why when Carlos Ghosn talks next week, I doubt that he is going to shed any details about exactly the plan to get him out, how it was executed, in part because they probably want to protect the people who helped them in Japan. Look, they didn't do this completely without some help in Japan. Yeah, so they clearly had to have some.
So I don't know if it was with you last week, but I kind of danced around, not actually saying I would have done the same thing if they treated me like that. I didn't really say that, but that's sort of what I was feeling after watching the whole saga, right? I mean, it's hard not to think that he was treated very well, okay? And I don't know, but like I said, I don't know the details of the accusations, but here it is. They just spell it out in the journal. It's the headline in the journal, or at least they took out of the piece in the op-ed page, obviously. It's hard to blame him for fleeing Japan after his ill treatment. And then it says, they go on to say it's been a fiasco from the start, from a dubious start, the whole saga. The best way for justice to be served now would be for truth about the accusations to emerge, for Ghosn to get his reputation back if the evidence is as weak as it seems, and they even go on to say for Japan to reform its justice system and corporate governance so they're more appropriate for the modern free market economy. So,
I don't think anybody would, Joe, I don't think anybody would disagree with that opinion or those opinions that you just read there.
This guy skipped out on bail and we're on his side. I mean, that's rare. You know what I mean? But
right. But at the same time, that's why I think the most interesting sort of side angle here, how does France play this? Right. Because on one point, it is one of their citizens, and they were critical of how Japan was handling Carlos Ghosn. Yet on the other hand, they can't be too critical because they own part of Renault, and this Nissan-Renault relationship, incredibly fragile right now. I mean, it's on the cusp of falling apart.
Phil, I guess the question becomes, is Carlos Ghosn ever able to leave Lebanon? Is he kind of stuck there?
Well, that's a great question. That's a great question. Look, he's got citizenship in Lebanon, Brazil, and France. Right. So theoretically, he could go to one of those countries. I'm not sure what the extradition treaty is. If there is one between Brazil and Japan, but it's an interesting question that you raise here. And then the other question that comes up is, will he ever be able to truly get his reputation back in terms of saying, look, here are the facts. This is what happened. This is what was not laid out by the Japanese authorities. Or is the fact that he escaped and skipped bail, will that always be the one story that people are going to focus on? And this other story, which is incredibly important, that whether or not he misreported or did not fully report tens of millions of dollars in compensation, will that ever truly come out?
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. Thank you. You're, between Boeing and this and Tesla and everything else, it
was a fun Christmas break.
But you got 2020. In 2020, you've got a lot to be concerned with too, I think.
He's a busy man.
New, ugly-looking new truck. You gotta.
See, there was a Ford downgrade today.
You got not that ugly truck. The uglier. You got to bring that one of those things in here to Times Square, Phil. I want to check.
Oh, when the day comes that they're going to bring one of those out, you can bet it'll be a big dog and pony show. Would it be any other way with Elon Musk?
No, but will you bring it here?
He makes a splash.
All right. I want to see that thing in person. It really, it does kind of look like the Back to the Future DeLorean, kind of mixed with some. Does. Yeah, it does. I don't know if we can go 0 to how many gigahertz did that thing ever? Was it gigawatts?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
On the flux capacitor.
Flux capacitor, that's what it was.
Right.
Flux capacitor.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Phil, thank you. I'm sure we will see him again soon, given his beat. When we come back, box office trends for the new year. We're going to talk about Disney's strong 2019 and how the competition stacks up for 2020. And later, restrictions on flavored vaping expected from the Trump administration. We'll talk to former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb about new rules. Stay tuned. You are watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC.
If you listen to the political debate in this country,
having to deal with financial stuff can make you feel but at Money Supermarket, we make you feel That's because we go further to help you get money car. We don't just compare. We cut prices to help you get better car insurance deals. Get money car. Money Supermarket.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down. Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three. It's up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Be better informed, be better prepared. The Better Network is on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search BETR and start hanging out with me and my guys in the desert weekday afternoons. The Better Network is now on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium,
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats.
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
TuneIn is remembering the biggest college sports moments of the decade, like this one from 2016, when Tennessee quarterback Josh Dobbs throws a Hail Mary to the end zone as time expires against Georgia.
4 seconds to go. Dobbs drops back, looks, loads up, fires long for the end zone. The pass is going to be caught by Tennessee. Tennessee wins! Caught by Tennessee, Jawan Jennings. Jennings makes the catch in the end zone on the Hail Mary.
Search college sports on TuneIn to be there for the moments that go down in history.
Welcome back, everybody. The 2019 domestic box office take ending the year at over $11 billion. That's about 4% less than 2018's haul, but it is still larger than 2017. Joining us right now for a look at what to watch in 2020 is Paul Dergarabedian. Dergarabedian. Did I get that right, Paul?
You got it right.
He is senior media analyst at ComScore. And Paul, it's great to see you this morning.
Great to be here, Becky. Thank you.
So 2019 was a pretty good year for the box office, but what about 2020? What are expectations just based on what we know about what's coming up on some of these film studio schedules?
Yeah, so I think 2020 is going to be a big year. Obviously, the strength of the end of the year in 2019, that's going to carry over into the new year, and that's a good thing. Of course, Star Wars is out there, Jumanji, Uncut Gems, Bombshell. There's a lot of big movies out there. Little Women is doing really well. And then we have a lot of big titles set for 2020. And I think this notion about streaming versus the movie theater, it's really kind of misguided because people love doing both. And I think the people who love going to the movie theater, they like to go home and watch streaming. I think all this just is additive in terms of how people feel about consuming entertainment and particularly movies in general. And I think this is going to be a really good year in 2020.
You think it's going to be better than this year? Because I've seen a lot of reports that suggest 2020 is going to be more difficult because there aren't the same number of franchise releases expected.
Yeah, but there were so many franchises in 2019, and yet the box office in North America is down a little bit, but internationally, we're up. This will be the biggest year internationally ever. ComScore is reporting over $30 billion for the first time internationally. That means we'll be over $40 billion for the third year in a row worldwide. So this notion that, you know, the movie theater is like horse and buggy and streaming is like the automobile is not true. It's more like Ford versus Ferrari. These are two great ways to get entertainment. I think the movie theater in 2020 with Wonder Woman 1984 will be released in 2020. We have a big Marvel movie, Black Widow, launching the summer of 2020. Of course, we have a James Bond movie coming in April. That's always great. Got a Bill and Ted movie. Look at that.
I mean, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Another Bill and Ted movie with the original. It is Keanu Reeves, yes. He's not only John Wick. It's coming. It's
with
one of the
Alex
most
Winter too?
Movies.
Really?
Yes, Alex Winter is back.
Are they grown
so
up
I think
or
it's going to be a fun year.
Are they grown up?
Are they parents?
Are they still saying?
You got to look at the trailer. You got to look at that trailer. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty fun.
I'm kind of open to
it.
And
Halloween. We're going to have another Halloween movie with Jamie Lee Curtis. That'll be in October.
She signed on for 3, I
and then
think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That means she doesn't
and then
die.
Christopher Nolan has a new movie, Tenet, which is highly anticipated. So, you know, if there aren't as many obvious big sequels, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. There are the movies that are fresh and original, like Joker was a big surprise this year, Knives Out towards the end of the year. So a lot of big movies in 2020. I wouldn't underestimate 2020, and particularly at the international and global box office. I think it's going to be a really big year. Could even be a record in 2020.
I see that Disney's box office receipts more than doubled any other studios. This was definitely their year. What happens next year?
It's their year. So next year they've got, this year now. They've got Mulan, Jungle Cruise, of course, and, kicking off the summer, another big Marvel movie. But that market share, I think, is going to be more evenly distributed in 2020 among all the studios, because this year, or I should say 2019 for Disney, was just massive. They had 6, and it'll soon to be $7 billion releases in 2019. Star Wars will be the latest. And you're right, their market share with Fox, with the Fox acquisition, close to 40% of the total year box office in 2019. That's huge. I don't know if any studio can ever do that again.
I think that chart was wrong. It had 3.6% for Universal. I think they actually had 13.35%.
Yeah.
So that was not the right. So we're looking at a bigger take than what that chart just showed.
Speaking of Fox, did you see Bombshell yet, Paul?
I haven't seen it yet, but that's one of the top films to look out for. It's been in the marketplace for a few weeks. It went limited when it first opened.
I want my hour and 40 minutes back. I mean, I went with my son just to see it. I don't know. If you think of it as just total fiction, is that okay? And know that it's from Hollywood, so the entire thing is going to be skewed in the most ridiculous way. I mean, I knew Roger. It was nothing like Roger. It was nothing like what happens at Fox. It was nothing like Trump. It was nothing like Megyn Kelly. It was nothing like anybody in real life. So what's the point?
Well, go see Little Women. Maybe that.
I know. My wife and kids did. They loved it. They loved it. Meryl Streep and
So there's some really good movies out there, and there's good movies on the small screen as well. I think we do not live by just one medium or by one platform. We love watching content at home. Look at the music business. I have every Who album at home. I'm going to go see them when they hit Caesar's Palace for their residency. We still have to go outside the home. We also love being at home watching entertainment. So it all feeds into each other.
Paul, it's great to see you. Thank you for your time today.
Great to be here. Thank you, and happy 2020.
You too.
All right, coming up next, remembering David Stern, who passed away yesterday at the age of 77. We're going to speak to former Charlotte Bobcats owner Bob Johnson about Stern's legacy and worldwide impact. We're coming right back.
Interactive Brokers.
On a TUI tour, our English-speaking local guides will take you off the tourist trail. They won't just help you find the perfect souvenir, they'll show you how to make it. Choose from over 70 unforgettable tours worldwide. From tranquil temples in India to sunrise safaris in South Africa. On a TUI tour, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. Book now and enjoy up to £200 off per booking. Booking T's and C's and minimum spend applies. Selected holidays only. Atoll protected.
Do you go on the same holiday every year? To the same country, in the same hotel, with the same sea view, visit the same ancient monuments, lay by the same dolphin-shaped pool, meet the same Barrys and Sandras, and wear the same Hawaiian shirt that you'd never wear at home? Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
You love TuneIn for live-breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
A
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Former NBA Commissioner David Stern has died at the age of 77. Stern suffered from a brain hemorrhage 3 weeks ago. He led the NBA for 30 years, credited with transforming the league into a multi-billion-dollar global brand, overseeing the most successful period in the NBA's history. Eric Chemi joins us now with more on his legacy. Good morning.
That's right, Joe. So you think about when he first started, there were magazine articles like in Time Magazine saying, will white America accept the NBA? Will they accept this black league? Will sponsors accept a league like that? Obviously, that's not a question anymore. We know what the NBA's done. He grew profits 30 times in his 30-year tenure. They added 7 teams. The TV rights deal is now 250 times bigger than it was when he first started. So that was the financial growth that we think about with the NBA and how big he made it. Internationally, he made the NBA the first league to take regular season games across the world. He's the one that got the dream team in the 1992 Olympics. And you look at the league now, so many international players. It's America's biggest sports export, certainly more so than football or baseball. So that was a big thing from that international growth. And then on the social issues, think about how big he was with Magic Johnson when he got that HIV diagnosis. A lot of people were afraid to shake Magic's hand. And David Stern was at the forefront of saying, look, he can play in the NBA. He can be in our All-Star game. He can be on our dream team. That is a big thing for me. I'm not going to let irrational fear stop Magic Johnson from being here. Also, David Stern helped usher in the WNBA. He also had a development league for younger players that are trying to make it. And he instituted a dress code that at the time, a lot of players didn't like. But the inadvertent effect is that it made the NBA a fashion icon because everyone had to dress nice for games. So certainly a lot of impact that he had. He ruffled a few feathers along the way, but a big impact. Roger Goodell called him the dean of the commissioners in the sports landscape.
He's a great man, just personally a great man too.
Absolutely. He said Andrew Sorkin, he called Andrew a pissant when I met him 3 months ago, and he said, Andrew's he got his start in journalism because he interviewed me for his school newspaper in Scarsdale.
Right. When did he called him a what?
He said, back when Andrew was a little pissant student.
I thought you meant he called him 1 3 months ago. You got to get your timing. You said 3 months ago he called Andrew a pissant. So I was
referring to.
I was going to jump on that. So he was talking.
Don't jump too much on it, Joe. Yeah.
All right, you meant when he started out. No, we were talking about how Andrew credits David Stern with giving him his start. All right, thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Eric. All right, join us now on the Squawk Newsline, Bob Johnson, founder and chairman of RLJ Companies. Bob was the first black owner of an NBA team, the Charlotte Bobcats, back in 2003. Sold his majority stake, as you probably know, to Michael Jordan in 2010. And you heard Eric and all of our discussions, Bob. What are your recollections about the man, David Stern himself?
Well, personally, I would say David, guided me both in terms of advice and enthusiasm about becoming the first African-American owner of any national sports league team. And to me, that was exciting. And when I served on the Board of Governors of the NBA, the one thing everybody, the 30 owners in those meetings with David knew who was in charge. He ran the NBA in what I would call the iron fist inside a velvet glove. But he really believed in what he set out to do with the NBA, whether it was on the issue of the number of African American players in the league and African Americans in ownership positions, African American in management positions. And he had a vision about where the NBA could go globally. And I tell you, I've never been involved with a business executive who was so confident in the asset, if you will, that he had, and that was the NBA, that you could have an NBA board meeting, 30 owners would vote nay, David would vote aye, the ayes have it.
You know, we were talking earlier about how he changed the league's fortunes to such an extent. And Charles Barkley was talking very recently about this, about how when he joined the league back in 1984, the average player salary was $250,000, and today it's $9 million. Obviously, the owners' fortunes went up in a similar way, but it's kind of hard to go back to think about where the league was when he stepped into the role in 83 or 84.
Yeah, it's hard to think about it because, I heard the earlier commentary about whether or not fans and sponsors would accept a league with African American players throughout the game. Because the one thing David told me, he said, Bob, when our teams play, it's different from football. A football player, the closest football player is some 30 yards from the nearest fan up in the stadium, and they have a helmet on. Nobody recognizes them. Our players are within 2 feet of every fan, and so when you think of African Americans playing in a place where fans are white and they're seeing them and their style and their behavior. David recognized that as something that could be a social issue, particularly if behavior of the players or stress style of the players was used by people who wanted to make an argument about the style, nature, competitiveness, brilliance, if you will, of African American ball players. David recognized that. He dealt with it with the dress code. He dealt with it with the way you couldn't express your accomplishments on the court, the choking signal. All of these things, David was so sophisticated and so aware of what he had to do to make the league acceptable, both nationally and globally, that I can't think of another industry that's had to deal with a business model dominated by African American talent, and so that was what was unique and so special about David. And he ran the league the way he believed the league should be run, and I think every owner has benefited from player contracts to the terms and conditions of TV rights.
Yeah, I mean, the moral compass was so steady the entire time. And 30 years is a long time, Bob, in the history of this country in terms of race relations and how... we still have some turbulence now, obviously. And think about what he managed through. I remember the Clipper owner. Remember all the stuff that went on? Bob? It's unbelievable, what he had to deal with. And the Clipper owner, the incident with the Clipper owner was Adam, and Adam made a major. But even I just mean, even currently, we still have issues that even after all was said and done, we're still dealing with some of these issues. And he was way ahead of the whole curve on all that stuff, right? No, he was, and personally for me, he said, "Look, I want you to be the first African American owner of a sports league, and I'm going to have to guide you through." I mean, and that was David. He did it with the Women's League, the WNBA. He really saw the future going to China. And one thing David used to say, when this was a time when reality shows were coming on television, every network had a reality show. David would say to both the owners in the league, he said, every night our games are a reality show. You don't know how it's going to end. Bobby, we hope to see you guest hosting soon. It's been a while, but thank you. Appreciate the call in today. Happy New Year to you guys, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, great.
When we come back, Gon's Great Escape. We're going to speak with a reporter in Tokyo who will give us the latest on exactly how we think the high-profile executive managed to flee Japan for Lebanon right before the new year.
When you really philosophize about it.
Welcome to Nuffield Health Fulham, a gym built around you. You get regular health MOTs to create a plan that works for you, with physios and personal trainers on site. You'll find a swimming pool, and our expert team will help you get the most out of your health, fitness, and your membership. Join today to get the rest of the month free. Search Nuffield Health. Specialists in you. 12-month commitments only. Facilities stated are in most gyms. Visit nuffieldhealth.com/terms.
At Wix, we'll create your dream kitchen from design to show-off ready and take care of everything. And now, get up to 50% off showroom kitchen units. Book your free design appointment today. Cure your house embarrassment with Wix. Selected ranges excluded. See wix.co.uk.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in. Touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations,
Live commercial-free news,
and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
TuneIn is remembering the biggest college sports moments of the decade, like this one from 2018, when Alabama's Tua Tagovailoa throws the game-winning touchdown in the national championship against Georgia.
Loads up, looks long, throws, end zone, touchdown! Alabama! Devontae Smith! Touchdown, Alabama! And the Crimson Tide has once again ascended to the top of the college football.
Search college sports on TuneIn to be there for the moments that go down in history. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, plunges into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and flows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Welcome to 2020. Futures pointing sharply higher this morning. We're going to tell you what you need to know to get your portfolio set for the new year.
How Gon got gone. New details on how Nissan's former chairman slipped out of Japan and away from criminal charges.
And vaporized. The Trump administration expected to announce a ban on many flavored e-cigarette pods. Former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb will join us live. The second hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning and welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC. I'm Joe Kernan along with Becky Quick. Andrew is off today. U.S. equity futures at this hour starting off the session, the new year, strongly in this session, up 152 points on the Dow. The NASDAQ indicated up almost 58, and the S&P up 15, almost 16 points. I saw the yield on the 10-year above
191, yeah.
And the dollar seems like it may be going the right way for the multinationals at this point. By that,
Which means down.
Yeah, a little bit weaker, which a lot of people are forecasting at this point.
Right. Let's tell you about what's making headlines at this hour. Tiffany reportedly knocked on Warren Buffett's door, seeking an alternative suitor to France's LVMH. The Financial Times reports that the luxury goods retailer approached Warren Buffett to see if he was interested. He was not. Tiffany eventually accepted a $16.2 billion takeover deal from LVMH. The stakes have been raised again in an ongoing takeover battle this morning. Network equipment maker Annixter now says that it has accepted another sweetened takeover deal from private equity firm Clayton, Dubilier & Rice. This one worth $93.50 a share. Bidding has gone back and forth several times between Clayton, Dubilier and industrial products distributor Wesco International. The original bid for Annixter was $82 a share. You can see that stock this morning up another 1.5%. And the Labor Department will have the first economic report of 2020 in less than 90 minutes. It's going to be issuing its weekly report on initial jobless claims, which is expected to show a slight increase. New details emerging in the story of Carlos Ghosn's escape from Japan. Reports say prosecutors in Turkey have opened an investigation into how Ghosn was able to make a stopover in Istanbul on the way to Lebanon without the knowledge of Turkish authorities. Ghosn reportedly took private plane flights to get out of Japan. According to the Wall Street Journal, this came after months of planning by Ghosn's associates to spirit him out of Japan and repeated petitioning by Lebanon to allow Ghosn to stand trial in his homeland. Joining us right now for more on this is Sean McLean, staff reporter at the Wall Street Journal. And Sean, we still don't know a lot of the details about how he got out, but what can you tell us?
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, there are a lot of holes in this narrative. I mean, we still don't know for sure how he got from Tokyo to that airport in Osaka and got out. But, you know, authorities in Japan and Turkey today kind of took the first steps to try to figure out for themselves what happened. So maybe we'll get the details in the coming days.
I've seen reports already that Ghosn met with the president of Lebanon as he arrived there that day. And then I've seen another report suggesting that Lebanon's saying it would not honor a request for extradition. What do you know about this?
Yeah, Lebanon as a policy does not extradite its citizens. And I think, in retrospect, quite obvious why Ghosn would want to be there. It does seem one of the motivations by Carlos Ghosn to go to Lebanon was to shop for a better jurisdiction. He says the Japanese legal system isn't fair, it's stacked against the defendants, and if the Japanese want to try him, they can try him in Lebanon. Our indication is that the Japanese are not keen on that idea.
Who does this create a bigger problem for? I mean, is this a problem for Japan, having allowed him to escape and to get away? Is this a problem for Japan in terms of the justice system there and lots of questions that have been asked about this? Or is this going to be a problem for Carlos Ghosn, having fled the country? How will he then be able to say, okay, I'm not guilty of these things they've accused me of?
Yeah, well, in Carlos Ghosn's case, he's always said, I'm not guilty, but the Japanese justice system is unlikely to let me prove that. You know, they have a pretty high conviction rate over here.
Yeah, something like 99%?
Yeah, you know, people who get indicted, you know, 99% of them tend to, are convicted. So either the prosecutors are incredibly straight shooters and only take the guilty to trial, or there's something hinky in the system. You know, I'm not going to comment on which one of those it is. But look, nobody comes out of this looking good. You know, Ghosn jumped bail, ran across the world to find a safer place to be. The Japanese justice system has well-documented issues and problems with its justice system that I think even the Japanese acknowledge are there. The Lebanese are suddenly have a high-profile citizen that, you know, they had been publicly asking for the return of, and now they suddenly have him there, and I'm not sure they expected the situation to happen. And the Turkish government is currently trying to figure out how the heck Carlos Ghosn went through their country without their knowing. So everybody is kind of turned upside down trying to figure out what the heck happened, and frankly, the only person who may know what actually happened is Carlos Ghosn, and he hasn't talked yet and may not until sometime next week. They haven't really figured out or told us when he's planning to do his big press conference that everybody's waiting for.
Sean, do you think that Carlos Ghosn is going to be trapped in Lebanon at this point? Will he be able to travel internationally again at some point?
Well, he's facing criminal investigations in France, right? He has a passport in Brazil, he has a passport in France, and he has a passport for Lebanon. he's facing criminal investigations in France. So if he goes to France, he's possible he could go to France. But if he goes to France, he's going to be facing investigations there too. Brazil, I guess, is a possibility. But, between, Lebanon is one of those few countries that doesn't have extradition treaties for its citizens. So he may not be going anywhere anytime soon.
Sean, I want to thank you for your time today. Good talking to you.
No problem. Anytime. Thank you.
All right, coming up, same week, different year. Welcome to 2020. Futures are pointing at this point to a strong open, more of the same for what we saw in December, which was so much easier to take than December of 2018. Yikes. Anyway, we'll talk markets as we make our way towards the opening bell. And is the e-cigarette industry about to get vaporized? We're told big changes are imminent. We're going to get it straight from former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's going to join us with his take on what
Stacker, and I've got some big
This is the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry he wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time he hops on a bus. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings account.
Had the same job for the last 15 years? Working with the same people, in the same office, drinking tea from the same comedy mug, eating the same crayfish and rocket sandwich every lunchtime, using the same business jargon, and climbing the same greasy pole. What does that even mean? Then maybe it's time to switch it up, starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa. With its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
Heading for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
The opening bell on the first trading day of 2020 is just a couple of hours away, and stocks appear to be starting the year the way they ended 2019. Higher. Let's talk markets now, what investors can expect this year. Joining us for that is Jeff Sout, founder of Sout Strategy and portfolio manager and chief investment strategist at Capital Wealth Planning. Also joining us is Tom Graff. He is a partner and portfolio manager and head of fixed income at Brown Advisory. Just for fun, let me start fixed income because maybe that makes a difference to what happens. Tom, we're above 190, wherever 191 on the 10-year. What's your range for 2020? What are you expecting, and will the range be sort of moving a little bit higher, do you think, or not?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe. We think that around 190 to maybe 2 or 210 is about as high as the 10-year can go, unless the market starts pricing in rate hikes, which would probably take a lot for that to happen. So I think in 2020, barring a really big surprise, around where we are now is probably about as high as it goes.
Really? That's not necessarily consensus. We've been looking for 2.5 or to finally get back to what people call normal, which maybe it's not normal. But so you don't expect that to happen again this year? No 3%?
No, I think the idea of normal rates really needs a rethinking. I don't think the Fed is thinking in terms of rates needing to normalize back to some natural level anymore. I think they're looking for guides from what happens with inflation or what happens with the economy softening to direct their next move. And unless the Fed's going to make a change, there's no real reason for rates to be a lot different in the intermediate part of the yield curve.
So, Tom, does that mean that the big worries about E&P energy companies and their debt coming due, and the big worries about our debt at the federal government and global debt and high-yield corporate debt, all the worries that could come home to roost with a rise in rates, do we not have to worry as much in 2020 about the specter of all those scary things?
Well, I think there's like a lot to unpack there, Joe. I think that if you're talking about companies from particular industries, I definitely think there's risk of softness in certain parts of the economy. And given that companies are fairly indebted, you could have pockets of trouble. We saw that in late 2015 and early 2016 in the energy market. It could be other places. But as far as like a generalized recession, I do think those odds are lower. And I don't think it has a lot to do near term with what happens with our debt. Those are more long-term troubles, not things we need to worry about, particularly in 2020.
All right, Sal, you're on. You can be, I mean, you can't be just crazy bullish at the beginning of every year. I mean, it served you well. Oh, I see you're a big, you like the Saints again this weekend? The New Orleans, is that a New Orleans? What is that thing up over your...
Fleur-de-lis. Fleur-de-lis.
You big Saints fan again? You picking them this weekend? No, I know that's not what that is. But, so... Are you as rabidly bullish as you were at the beginning of last year? Are we going to do another 25% this year, or does even Jeff Stout moderate his expectation for gains in the S&P?
Well, I came on here last year around this time and said, 3,200 for year end of 2019. People laughed at me. They didn't think it could happen. I think the S&P will be somewhere between 3,500 and 3,600 by the end of this year. Not as good a year as last year, but I expect the economy to strengthen. I think that earnings are going to continue to come in better than expected. And I still don't see a recession. I mean, I've heard for the past 3 years we were going into a recession, and I don't see it.
30, that's pretty good, Jeff. So you're talking double digits, but not like this year.
Not like this year, but the history when you've had a decent year like we've had this year is the next year is up as well, and so I think we're going to be up, and I think we're going to be up to 3,500 to 3,600 basis the S&P.
Are people starting to not doubt every move higher yet? That's when we need to worry, because they still for some reason think everything is overvalued and this can't continue, and we're setting ourselves up for a fall, and there's a lot of air under this market, and it's Fed induced and blah blah, all the stuff we hear all the time. When that changes and people say, wow, things are good, this market's going to keep going, that's when you worry, right? Where are we sentiment-wise, do you think?
It depends on who you talk to, Joe. The professional investors are still pretty bullish. The individual investors are still scared to death because they didn't manage risk in 2008 and early 2009. And as Benjamin Graham said in the book, The Intelligent Investor, the essence of portfolio management is the management of risks, not the management of returns. And that's what we do at Capital Wealth Planning. We manage risk, and we do it very well.
Okay, good. All right, Jeff Stout, thank you. And Tom, thanks for the fixed income side of things as well. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
When we return, the verdict on vaping. The Trump administration is expected to announce a decision any day now to ban certain flavors of e-cigarette pods. But that is not the end of the story. Former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb will join us next with all the unanswered questions. There are a lot of them. Stay tuned. You are watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC.
Time now for today's Aflac Trivia question. What year did Georgia vote to ratify the U.S. Constitution in order to become the fourth state to join the United States? The answer when CNBC Squawk Box continues.
Coach Saban convinced us.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Now the answer to today's Aflac trivia question. What year did Georgia vote to ratify the U.S. Constitution in order to become the 4th state to join the United States? The answer, 1788.
The Trump administration is set to announce a ban on flavored e-cigarette cartridges. White House officials tell CNBC that menthol and tobacco flavors will be exempt and that the new ban won't apply to tank vaping systems that are commonly found at vape shops. It's an effort to try and curb teen vaping. Analysts say that the sweet and fruity flavors represented about 80% of retail store e-cigarette sales in 2019. President Trump is expected to formally make that announcement tomorrow. But joining us right now to talk about the ban and some big unanswered questions is Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He is the former FDA commissioner. He's also a CNBC contributor and a board member at Pfizer. And Scott, it's great to see you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
So we've been talking about this for a long time. You have been an advocate of making sure these flavors got banned. But what happened with menthol? Is that a step back from the White House?
Well, look, it's a modest step. It's going to have an impact, but I think we're really going to be dependent upon Tobacco 21, the new age restrictions, really to try to quell this youth epidemic, because what the policy they announced effectively freezes the market as it is. Juul, the market leader and the #1 product used by kids, already pulled all their flavors off the market. This ban just affects the cartridge-based products, so products like Juul and Vuse and Enjoy. And effectively what's going to happen now is Enjoy and Vuse with their Ace device, Enjoy with their Alto device, actually I think that's backwards, they're now going to have to pull their flavored pods like Juul did.
You, for a long time, had said that menthol probably shouldn't be there either, right? That menthol should also get pulled. What happened? What's behind the scenes?
Well, look, I think the issue with the menthol is people worry about adult smokers using combustible products that are mentholated and not having the option to switch to a non-combustible product to an e-cigarette. So you want to leave the menthol on the market as an option for adult smokers. I think the issue that we need to remember is this just affects the cartridge-based products. So when you go into a convenience store, if you're a kid, you're still going to be able to find loose e-liquids, flavored e-liquids. What we sought to do in March of 2019 was withdraw all the flavored products from the convenience stores where the kids are getting access to those products. This is still going to leave the flavored e-liquids in little bottles in those stores.
Explain that to me. I don't understand that. So they're banning e-cigarette cartridges, but not the
liquids.
Not the liquids.
Right.
So kids can still go in, buy this, get access to it?
That's right. So what's happening now, if you go on YouTube...
Not just menthol, that's any flavor.
Right, any flavor. So if you go on YouTube, you'll see how-to videos on how to basically refill these pods with flavored e-liquids that you can buy in stores. So one option was to withdraw the liquids entirely, all the flavored liquids from the convenience stores where kids are getting them, and just segregate them to the adult-only vaping shops.
Yeah, you've never had a problem with the vaping shops, right? Because they are pretty careful about who they let in the door.
Some of them, most of them. I mean, they have a better record on the whole than the convenience stores. And I think with the new age restrictions at Tobacco 21, now they're going to be able to card up to 21. So that will help them keep kids out of those stores. It's really the convenience stores. You have to reduce the access and appeal of these products to kids. The appeal is the form and factor of Juul, the high nicotine buzz, but also the flavors. The access is through the convenience stores and also the social buying in the high schools, the 18-year-olds buying them for 16-year-olds. That's why Tobacco 21 is so important. One of the unanswered questions about this policy is how will it treat disposable e-cigarettes? So something called puff bars is becoming very popular among kids right now. Juul is the most popular product, but Puff Bars is gaining on Juul. These are fully disposable e-cigarettes made in China, basically single-use items. I'm not sure how this policy is going to treat that because it talks about cartridge-based products.
Why do you think the restrictions are getting watered down from what the president had initially announced?
Well, the reports are that there were political concerns about the impact on vaping stores. And look, I too was sympathetic to the vaping stores because I do think that adult smokers are using the open tank products to convert off of combustible tobacco. So you want to provide some option for adults, right, to stop smoking. But, you know, I would have been, frankly, more aggressive on the pod-based products and withdrawing them all from the market. I think Juul, Vuse, Enjoy, those should come off the market entirely. I don't think, given the youth use, they have enough redeeming public health value.
Are they bad actors? Did they intentionally go after this youth market and try to get kids addicted to nicotine?
Well, certainly when you look at Juul's historical practices, I believe so. I think there were historical practices that targeted those products to kids. They've cleaned that up, but the damage has been done. This gained fashion among children.
Where do we stand right now in terms of the addiction problem with kids who are getting addicted to nicotine and getting addicted to inhaling things into their lungs?
It's growing. Look, and kids are also now vaping THC, the active ingredient in cannabis, because we've sort of popularized the notion of vaping liquids altogether. Look, 2018, you saw a 78% increase. 2019, the data showed another 30% increase of youth use on top of that. So fully almost a third of all kids are now using some form of nicotine vaping product.
Kids what age?
Under the age of 18. Will it go up again in 2020? If they can make rapid implementation of Tobacco 21, that's our best hope for stopping this epidemic. If they rapidly implement that and enforce it, hopefully you can get this to level off and maybe decline in 2020, because the restrictions on the flavors that they put in place basically just freezes the market as it is. It's a real boon to Juul because it forces Juul's competitors to now conform to what Juul already did. So this helps Juul quite a bit. They'll gain market share as a result of this policy.
You think this policy is toothless, though, in terms of trying to stop the addiction?
I think it's incremental. I think the biggest impact right now is going to be from Tobacco 21. You could have gone further. They chose to take a step back. You know, it will take Enjoy and Vuse and some of the other products that are gaining market share, like Puff Bars, hopefully off of the market in flavored forms that are attractive to kids. But Juul still owns the kid market. 60% of all kids who are vaping are using Juul.
You say they've stopped their bad practices, but if 60% of the kids are using Juul, what should that company actually be doing to try and make sure that its products are not ending up in kids' hands?
Well, I think it should come off the market. I mean, when you have a single product that has that high of a violation rate, they've demonstrated they can't control access to their product, and they should come off the market. There's a regulatory basis to do that. So they could have taken selective action against Juul, in my opinion, and had the legal basis to do that. They could have taken selective action against all the pod-based products as a category and pulled them all off the market and just left the open tank systems on the market. They chose to do what they did, presumably, if you believe the reports, which is just ban the flavored cartridges that go in those products. That will have an impact. It will be incremental. It's not going to have a significant impact on the market because really all you're affecting is views and enjoy and some of these niche products like puff bars.
Dr. Gottlieb, thank you. It's great
Thanks
to see
a lot.
you.
Where was the state where everybody's getting high now? What?
Chicago, I think, was where.
They just
Illinois?
legalized.
What could go wrong? Have we had a melting pot? I mean, have we had an experiment? Not a melting pot. Have we had an experiment yet where we can watch exactly what happens when everyone can get stoned? Whenever?
Well, and also the concomitant use of nicotine and THC in the developing brain. That's a very dangerous
what do we know?
natural
Is this
experiment.
okay? I mean, I watch it. So what can you do now in Chicago or Illinois? What you can buy
recreational. You can buy it
wherever you want and just get high whenever you want.
Yeah. There's age restrictions.
Huh?
There's age restrictions.
What is it,
that'll
21?
work.
I think so.
How about driving? You're allowed to drive? I mean, what
While you're high.
What do we know?
It's a good question, and it certainly impairs driving.
Should I worry if I visit Chicago or
Colorado, California, Massachusetts?
How did it work in Colorado? Well, actually, we were all in Colorado. I think we were already there in the 70s, so nothing much has changed.
Colorado, actually, the incidence of accidents went up. If you talk to insurers in that state, incidents of accidents on the road.
You concerned with this? You're worried about vaping?
Very concerned.
I mean, if we go nationwide, unlimited recreational pot use, is that good for society?
It's very dangerous. Look, I didn't regulate it. I was very concerned about it. We didn't regulate what the states were doing. We regulated when they were making medical claims. Vaping THC also is very dangerous.
I know, that's the lung. And we have to worry here because it's not just the people that are like Woody Harrelson hemp advocates. Anybody that's got 3 shares of some stupid cannabis stock, if we say the slightest thing about pot that maybe we ought to think about this, they get mad, right? They get mad if they own, what are those things? They get mad if you say the slightest thing because they may, their stock might go down.
I think the federal government needs to step in and federally regulate this. We have to have a reckoning between the states and the feds.
Oh, I got it. Doctor, thanks. Still to come on Squawk Box. Changes and strife at one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Why 2019 was such a pivotal year for Google. We're going to talk about what some veterans of the company are saying about how it's changed and where it goes from here. There's 100 zeros on
Google Plus.
Yeah. All right, stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box. Maybe still. I don't know.
You're listening to the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry she wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time she runs out of milk. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings account.
Hello, I'm here at the Race for Life 5K, joined by Jackie Clark. Jackie, what would first place today mean to you?
I think you've got the wrong race, love. This is Race for Life. This is about beating cancer, not getting a gold medal.
And how did you train for this event?
I just turned up. It's a walk in the park, literally. Why aren't you doing it? Trainers on, let's go.
We're not athletes, we're cancer beaters. Sign up to Race for Life now and get 30% off entry until the 31st of January in partnership with Tesco.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. It's a new year and time for you to explore new podcasts on TuneIn. Exciting new podcasts like How I Built This from NPR.
A show about innovators, entrepreneurs, idealists, stories behind the movements built.
The Rachel Maddow Show from MSNBC.
Good evening. Thanks for being with us. Happy holidays. Congressman.
What's Next from Slate. Start your new year with these podcasts and more. Just search podcasts on TuneIn today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
This is CNBC, and we are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. We're going to talk tech right now, and specifically some emerging strife inside Alphabet's Google division. Veterans of the company are now saying that it's become unrecognizable from what it once was. Deirdre Bosa is here. She's got more on that story. And Deirdre, good morning.
Good morning, and Happy New Year's, guys. Well, next year, one of Alphabet's biggest challenges will come from within its own walls, and that is the culture war that's really been seen building over the last 3 years. The company has been mired with controversies around hate speech, sexual harassment, employee walkouts. Now, part of this internal transformation that, as Becky said, some veterans say have left the company unrecognizable. A lot of it has to do with its size. Google has scaled to more than 100,000 workers. Things that have worked very well over the last 2 decades, they may no longer be so straightforward. Remember, this company is worth nearly $1 trillion now. Few of them, weekly all-hands meetings where workers could openly and aggressively challenge executives. They also used to allow anyone to access nearly any internal document. So that's all been scaled back. But with less transparency and a workforce raised on that unofficial motto, don't be evil, the controversies are piling up and employees are pushing back. There was Project Dragonfly, a secret plan to develop a censored search engine. Remember Android co-founder Anthony Rubin, his golden parachute after sexual misconduct claims were found credible. The canceled AI ethics board. Now, those incidents and more resulting in walkouts and rallies as some employees battle to, quote, save Google's open culture. All of this, guys, all of this internal conflict, it doesn't look to be going anywhere. And it'll now all be on CEO Sundar Pichai to manage it as we head into 2020. Guys, it's not just this culture war, it's political scrutiny. A slower advertising business is going to be a challenging one for Google.
Like me? Is that? Do we have something?
Did I get it from you?
I don't know. No, but you're dealing with this? Yeah. But we're here. Is that good that she doesn't?
Everybody on this side of the table, hold your breath.
Yes.
I can hear it. Anyway, thanks. How long does it last? It's been 2 weeks.
I don't know. I've never.
You tried Tamiflu or anything?
I'm trying everything. What's your secret? Honey water, cough drops.
Let's expand our conversation. Maybe Ed Lee or Joanne knows the hot tea. Do you have it? Oh, no, that's not how we're expanding it. Ed Lee is New York Times corporate media reporter. Joanne Lippman, distinguished journalism fellow at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. They're both CNBC contributors. Let's not talk about it. Let's talk about Google. And you heard, I think, I love Google. I love all our big tech companies. I think this needs.
You use Google, right?
I use Google Maps. It's free. 2019 was the year of looking a gift horse in the mouth, and the rest of the world looks at us. And if they had one Facebook, they had one Google, if they had developed one thing since SAP, they'd be happy. But they don't have it. Can't we?
It's really not just about 2019. I mean, as Deirdre pointed out, this has been going on before. I mean, I was actually on the Google campus. I happened to be giving a Google talk on November 1st of 2018, which was the day of the walkout over that $90 million payout to Andy Rubin for sexual harassment to make him go away. And what's really interesting to me is to see there's been a transformation. So at that moment, so I was in the middle of these thousands of people at headquarters, and the walkout, the employees at that moment, it was the mood was more like disappointment with something you love, with an institution that you love. But it's really morphed, it seems, since then, from disappointment to hostility.
Is this going to make it tougher for Google or Alphabet to be able to hire top talent?
I think that's a great question, because you had people who deeply love the company and love that "don't be evil" kind of concept. And now you have, I hear it from younger people who have concerns about being affiliated with Google, because
having said that, the stock has taken off. If you're
but it's
stock
also,
options
and that's
or
been a
anything
big
with
part
this.
of not just for Google, but for Facebook as well. Like in Silicon Valley, it's not just the pay; it's the company you work for. They firmly believe in the mission, the direction, the product that they create. So you not only have to sell them on the salary, you have to sell them on the mission.
You can't lower the common denominator to the woke millennial Bernie Sanders supporter that has a problem with the profit incentive in general. They're working for a company that they wish would not divvy everything up, so that there's nothing left over.
Profits and goodness.
But all I'm saying is that the common denominator in today's world with some young people, you're never going to get that woke if you're at a for-profit business. And to try to satisfy the wokeness of this new generation that's been told all this wacky stuff, you're never going to do it.
That's a leadership issue.
You're never going to do it.
It's a leadership issue. You're absolutely right. How much do you want to kowtow to your millennial
the lowest
employees?
common denominator.
I would
there
not
are
say
socialists. 70% think socialism is okay.
I wouldn't say lowest common denominator. I would say you've got a new generation that has a very different outlook about what they're looking for.
And not only that, but
a job.
Google was able to do it for so long. This is really a problem that's arisen over the last 3 years. So they have been able to be quite successful by doing the right thing. That is all changing.
I mean, they were in bed with the Democrat Hillary in the last election. How much more woke do you want they cried and had a corporate meeting to try to help soothe everyone's feelings when Hillary didn't get elected. How much more woke do you need to get?
But they have an issue. For example, they have been under scrutiny by the Labor Department for underpaying women. They have an issue where they don't have transparency, where what they're paying women, minorities, ethnic minorities. And so
I knew you were going to get to that. I knew you would get to that.
So this is not her issue. This is an issue that's already been aired out by the employees
Let me change gears to another thing that I talk about. And that, the Iger, are we going to canonize him?
You're talking about Bob Iger and Disney, how awesome
and the movies
Disney is because of the great work that Bob Iger has done.
Here's my only point. Okay. Disney last year was up 31.9%. Okay, from January 2nd. This is a Variety piece. Comcast up 32%. What is that? Geez, that's a 10. Okay, so tied, let's call it. Discovery. Do we talk about Zaslav and Discovery?
Zaslav does a great job too.
Okay, and you know what some people say though. And okay, so let's see. Where was Discovery was up 32.3%. AT&T up 37%, and that's kind of there's some specific
nice stock with a good dividend,
and it was hurt in 2018, obviously.
I think the credit that Bob is getting, that you're sort of wondering about your
he's a great executive,
which is always good to do.
We should mention other people as well. It shouldn't be all Disney, all Iger, all the time.
I think if Iger is mentioned in the context of, well, he took this very well-established, very well-run media company, doing it in sort of the traditional way, and decide, you know what, we're going to scrap this thing the way we've been doing it, which is linear television, and we're going to go all in on streaming, which has lower to no margins in a lot of cases. And he actually told Wall Street, look, don't expect profits for the next 35 years, and this is hopefully where we'll get. And so after day one, they actually released some numbers, 10 million new signups within the first day. That's actually pretty astounding. We don't know how many of those are free signups, but the point is there's a lot of interest.
Viacom CBS was down 4%. But AMC was down 28%.
The fundamental change of their business model, I think that is what
Disney.
Arguably the credit that he's
by owning all your IP globally. That's what Discovery and Disney.
And he started that from way back when he bought Pixar and then Lucasfilm and Marvel. And I think
Joe, you also raise a really interesting point, which is he has been canonized and he is the top, right? And so where do you go from here? And here we are at the very beginning of 2020. What will Disney look like in the coming year? And how does he top the year he has just had?
Apparently, they may make a movie this year that's not a sequel. It's just in the works right now. It's just they're just talking about it. It's not for sure.
But it's working, right? All those sequels have been working. They basically own the box office.
Unless I will see a Halloween sequel. But
do you have Disney Plus?
Of course.
There you go.
If you have it, right? There you go.
What are we talking? Well, the best performing stock of the last decade has been Netflix, right? So it's moving forward. All we can talk about is streaming. And of all the CEOs you've just listed and companies, I mean, Disney's the most talked about, at least of the last few months, thanks to Baby Yoda and some other characters.
Yeah, also, come on, Baby Yoda, right? Under Iger's sort of reign, Baby Yoda.
That's
going to be mine.
Baby Yoda.
It's amazing how much Baby Yoda appears in my own timeline, in my own household.
Yoda is going to be like a pet
Baby
rock
Yoda made an appearance on the Iger family Christmas card.
God, you're going to be cabbage fat. I mean, that lasts like the half-life of that is like 3 weeks.
It's that intangible, right? That as a media executive, that's always been the hardest part.
I love him. I like him. I just think that, that other people should get
I think it's good to be skeptical.
Thank you. I'm not
with
skeptical. I'm not skeptical. I'm just saying let's spread the love around.
But if you have Disney Plus, I'm sorry, beyond Baby Yoda, you've got
It's not going to be $5 or whatever it is for forever either. So
Yeah,
we're going to see in this first report how that's working for them too. Maybe a rude
at the
awakening.
moment they are poised to be
Is it only how much is it,
category
Ed? Is it how much is it?
It's 6 and change. Yeah. If you're buying it.
I'd rather do. Smart companies do advertising mediated streaming.
You're talking about the forthcoming streaming service from NBC.
Which Barry Diller liked
not a homer.
Which actually, as Netflix and Disney rise, there's fewer places for advertisers to put their stuff. So having something like a Peacock, I think, is probably for advertisers. From Madison Avenue, they're looking forward to it. They want
and then it gets free. I don't want to. How many bills am I paying for all these things?
There will be a price tier there too.
And there will be a shakeout, clearly.
Yes, there will. And people are going to have to raise prices too.
Yes.
We're getting more content. And
more content is good.
It is good. All right. Thank you. I knew it. I knew the first day of 2020, you get woke at some point, and you did. Thank you. I can count on you. You're welcome.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks, and I hope you feel
Me too. All right, when we come back, Tesla getting ready to ramp up deliveries in China. This comes after the first finished cars rolled off its Shanghai assembly line last week. The details are next when Squawk Box returns.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You'll get interviews, original content, and behind-the-scenes access. Look for us on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. And subscribe to Squawk Pod today.
It's great being with Eon. Right now, they're offering their customers the chance to win big thanks to an exclusive prize draw, with the top prize being a £5,000 holiday. Where to? Well, you choose the destination, and they do the rest. Another winter warmer from Eon. To check out all the great prizes on offer, for the full terms and conditions, and to enter, go to eonenergy.com/win by the 30th of January.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Move, and a shot,
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Welcome back to Squawk Box, everybody. The futures this morning are indicated sharply higher on this first trading day of the new year. Looks like right now the Dow futures are indicated up by about 158 points. If they get up to 163 points above fair value, you'd be looking at a new intraday trading high when the markets open at this point. S&P futures just below what would be an all-time high, an all-time trading high, intraday trading high for them too. They need to be up by just over 17 points, and right now up by about 16 points. Nasdaq this morning indicated up by close to 62 points. It needs to be up by about 79 points to be opening at a new intraday trading high.
All right, Tesla says it's set to deliver a second round of China-made Model 3 sedans to its customers. The company tells Reuters the delivery will happen on Tuesday at an event at the Shanghai factory. It adds that the customers are not Tesla employees. That would be unlike those who received the first round of Model 3s from the plant. Tesla's shares this morning are strong, up over 1% at 423, almost 424. Coming up, we are a month out from the Iowa caucuses, so expect Democratic candidates to start making their final pitches to voters on health care, the economy, and taxes. We will talk about all three and how the eventual nominee should run against the Trump economy and whether that's possible when Squawk Box returns.
Interactive Brokers charges 3.06%.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. It's a new year and time for you to explore new podcasts on TuneIn. Exciting new podcasts like How I Built This from NPR.
A show about innovators, entrepreneurs, idealists, stories behind the movements. Go.
The Rachel Maddow Show from MSNBC.
Good evening. Thanks for being with us. Happy holidays. Congressman.
What's Next from Slate. Start your new year with these podcasts and more. Just search podcasts on TuneIn today.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Well, it is officially 2020, so the debate over taxes that we've been having is about to kick into high gear. You've got a presidential election now on the line for this year. Joining us right now is Representative Josh Gottheimer. He's a Democrat from New Jersey. And Doug Holtz-Aiken, who is president of the American Action Forum and former director of the Congressional Budget Office. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you.
Hi, Becky. Thank you.
Happy New Year. And here we go. It's 2020. It is an election year. Doug, what do you think happens next as it gets closer to some of the big elections that we're going to see for who's going to take the leadership position among the Democrats?
Well, I think what you're going to see is a big emphasis on the differences in the candidates. I mean, there are lots of things they agree on, but elections are won on what the differences are. So you're going to see some emphasis on probably some pretty extreme proposals, like the Warren and Sanders wealth taxes, horrifically bad ideas, but which set them apart from the rest of the crowd.
Congressman Gottheimer, it's your party that's going to be doing this. I know you're not somebody who wants to see taxes raised. So what do you think as the rubber really hits the road here?
I think we've got a big tent with a lot of people running, and there are a lot of different perspectives. And obviously, I agree with Doug that we shouldn't be raising taxes, and I think those proposals aren't the right path. So many of us are going to be pushing for other ideas, and obviously, we've got a lot of elections across the board in 2020, and many of us are going to be fighting, like I am in the 5th District, to cut taxes, make sure we get smart investment in infrastructure, and get SALT back, the state and local tax deductions. So there are a lot of local issues that many of us are going to be also focused on in 2020.
You believe this guy, Doug? If I could clone you, Josh, I would.
So you got to meet. I've got plenty of Democrats. You just got to meet them.
I would clone you and populate the entire Democratic side of the House with you. But I don't think that's going to happen. Although, can I ask you one question, Josh? And this is a serious question. I have seen zealously argued that you need a Biden and a moderate to win, and I've seen the opposite. The opposite, I'm not going to say exact opposite because it already is if it's the opposite, right? But the opposite is that the energy is going to be on a younger, more progressive candidate, and there's no way that someone that represents the old establishment can win. And it seems like if the party is right down the middle, 50-50, that's, divided, united we stand, divided we fall. I don't see how you win an election if you can't decide what the moral or the geographic center of the Democratic Party is right now.
Well, I think, there's always tension in a primary, different perspectives coming out. I think you're still seeing a lot of push to the middle, actually, and I think as we head toward the general election...
You're a middle guy, then. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you think you do a Biden. You don't think a Bernie... There are people that want Bernie to be the nominee.
Booker here in Jersey, but I think in the end, we're going to get somebody who is more moderate. That's the way you bring the country together. You're still fighting for the swing voters, and I think that's actually how we're going to win the election. But
Bernie raised $34 million, Aiken.
The concern here is that, for example, former Vice President Biden might be more moderate, but if you just look at his proposals, they're not moderate. This is an extremely high tax, high spend, anti-growth agenda, and it's something that the entire Democratic Party has embraced. And it's really going to harm them when push comes to shove.
I disagree with that. I don't think we've all embraced the perspective of many of us want to cut taxes and actually we just, as you know, at the end of the year,
I'm thrilled to hear you say that. I just don't see the rest of them. Where are they?
Well, did you see what we did at the end of the year in the package? We cut the health insurance tax, the Cadillac tax, right, to make sure that was gone. Cut the medical device tax, got a great trade deal done. I think there's a lot of room for a more moderate perspective to bring both sides together, to show the country that we can work together. I think people are sick and tired of all this screaming from both sides. You saw the Tea Party in years past. We need to we got to bring back a more moderate perspective, and I think that's the way we're actually going to get things done in the country.
Doug, what do you think of the congressman's idea that the SALT deduction needs to be brought back?
Well, I'll just gently disagree. I think that's an important piece of the tax reform that was begun in 2017, but was hardly finished. The definition of tax reform is broaden the base, lower the rates. I endorse that heartily. There was a lot of base broadening left on the table. Well, the one piece they did was capping the state and local tax deduction. They should continue to do more.
Yeah, but Doug, the problem with that is it actually raised our rates here in Jersey, so you might have given a break to others, but you totally hosed us, which is why we passed actually reinstating.
Which is why you should do
which is why we cut those taxes in the year
with the base broadening so that everybody shares in raising that revenue more efficiently. That's the definition of tax reform. Doing one targeted piece is not a reform.
Well, I think part of this reform has to be that we stop sending all these dollars to all these moocher states that keep taking our dollars, right, like Mississippi and Alabama and others, that rely on the federal government to pay their state budgets instead of actually spending only what they send into the government. That's actually, if you want to talk about actually reasonable reform, we should start there.
Gentlemen, we'll have to save that conversation for another time. I want to thank you both for being with us, though. Happy New Year to both Doug and to Josh.
Thanks so much, Becky.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
I'm going to clone you. Actually, that guy got in trouble for genetic stuff.
Oh, the guy from China.
Yeah, probably can't do it yet, Josh. Soon. Coming up, some key Chinese manufacturing data out of this morning. Plus, cuts in import tariffs on hundreds of products will bring you all the latest from Squawk Box Return. You know that tech stock we talked about?
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, plunges into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Along the goal line, scores and tucks it home.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo. He
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
gonna move and a shot.
From regular season action to the All-Star game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
TuneIn is remembering the biggest college sports moments of the decade. Like this one from 2018, when Texas kicker Cameron Dicker nails the game-winning field goal in the Red River Showdown against Oklahoma.
A 40-yard field goal try. Good snap and hold. The kick on its way, and the kick is good! It's good! Dicker, the kicker, comes through, and with 9 seconds...
Search college sports on TuneIn to be there for the moments that go down in history.
A surge to start the year. Futures pointing to a higher open on Wall Street. We'll get new data on jobs in just 30 minutes.
Ghosn's great escape. We'll talk about what's next for the ousted Nissan chairman and the consequences for foreign business in Japan.
Plus, a new call on Tesla. We'll talk to an analyst who says that this will be a make-or-break year for Musk and company. The final hour Squawk Box begins right now. Oh, this is me. Get ready. Good morning and welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC, live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Joe Kerner along with Becky Quick. Andrew is off today. I can't believe who's in Andrew's seat. You're here.
I am.
13
in the
hours
flesh.
later.
Yeah, that's right.
This is unbelievable. I did. Do you know what time it is? I mean, are you totally jet lagged? Are you?
I'm definitely jet lagged.
Do you think it's nighttime?
Yeah, it's 9
Eunice
p.m.
is here. You came in for the big market opening, up 164 points. Dow's indicated to open up 164 points. Nasdaq up 66. The S&P up 17. Treasuries are about 192 or so. We got. When are we talking to you?
Right now.
Oh, right now. Okay.
Right now.
Because he's signing it on January 15th.
That's right. One of the biggest market drivers from 2019, of course, was the trade war. President Trump is set to sign a Phase 1 deal on January 15th. That's why Eunice is here. She has much more on this front, and it's great to see you in person.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, that's according to the White House. But according to the Chinese press, or officially, so far there's nothing.
As of this morning, there hasn't been any mention about the January 15th deadline, about who exactly from the Chinese side would be going to the White House.
Markets.
Whether or not there's going to be a phase 2. Yeah, so there's no reference at all at this point. Although that's not unusual, because what we've been seeing in terms of a pattern is that the Chinese side has been very, very cautious, and that's already the type of style that the Chinese prefer.
I think, and lately, like 6 months ago, when you'd mentioned that, the bad outcome would be confirmed. In the last month or two, when they haven't said anything right away, eventually they do come and say, yes, we are doing what we said.
So there hasn't been any confirmation of an agricultural purchase number, but and there are reasons
they haven't come out and said that's total crap like they used to. They come out and sort of say, yeah, it's true.
And most people think it is going to happen. If not the 15th, at some point, and that's largely because of the economy. So overnight, we had the latest economic data, which is the Caixin PMI, which gauges all these smaller and medium-sized manufacturers, and it was worse than they expected. It's the worst reading in 3 months. And then Xi Jinping, of course, president of China, had his New Year's address and said that stabilizing the economy was going to be a priority. And there was a huge event, a multi-day conference that happened at the end of December, as it always does, and they were saying, the authorities were saying, we want to make sure that the economy is going to be stabilized. And just, you guys were mentioning it, the import tariffs have been cut, not only for the United States, but just generally try to stimulate spending. The central bank, as of Monday, is going to put more liquidity into the market, cutting the 50 basis points for banks. And then one of the reasons why people think that there will be a big push for the economy is because President Xi has made it clear that he wants to, for 2021 and the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party, make sure that they reach their stated goals, which is to double the GDP from 2010 by 2021. And so the discussion is that 6% is going to be that number.
That's what you have to hit, 6%
Yeah, so 6%, like 5.9, 6%, and that they'd be able to reach that number to have a moderately prosperous a society, which is one of the goals. So then they would want to clear the decks of having to worry so much about the economy and then move on to some other geopolitical issues that they have to face. But then it means that the trade truce would be beneficial for that plan.
Even though there's nothing that's been indicated by the Chinese side in terms of a signing for the 15th of January, we just showed that calendar that showed the Lunar New Year is coming up, I think, on the 25th. That lasts a while.
It does.
And my guess would be maybe they would want to see something signed before they go into that.
Yeah, so the timing looks like it makes sense because you have these moves right now to try to help things along, to improve the environment for a signing. And then the 21st, as you guys are talking about, you guys are going to be going to Davos, right?
Right. The thought was President Trump wanted this to happen before he went to Davos.
And then the top trade negotiators, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, and then Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer are supposed to be in Davos from the 21st to the 24th. So if you kind of look at the windows when things are available, the 15th does make sense.
What's the date? It's the 2nd. Is it 20? It's 2020. So January 2nd, 2021. One of our headlines today was Hong Kong protests.
Yes.
Will that be a headline on January 2nd, 2021? What's going to happen over the next year? How's that going to...
I think it's going to be a big issue. It's going to continue. Yeah, it's going to continue to develop.
How is that not the biggest thing happening maybe in the world, or at least over there?
It's a huge, huge issue. And like I said, there are a couple of other headaches that the Chinese leadership are facing. Yes, like Hong Kong.
Coronary. That's like it's like
Hong
all
Kong.
your arteries.
Xinjiang. So helping, kind of dealing with the way the Western world is viewing how China treats Muslims.
This is the day of reckoning we've been talking about for years and years and years. It finally has to come to, maybe not completely, but it just seems like more freedom and, all the things that I don't want to be, jingoistic, but all the things that we enjoy here, people are going to want around the world someday.
Are you talking about in Hong Kong? Or
no, I'm talking about in China. I'm talking about it spreading past Hong Kong.
That is the biggest fear of the Chinese government. So they want to make sure that's one of the reasons why you constantly hear that rhetoric about foreign forces need to stay out of Hong Kong, need to stay out of our business when it comes to
domestic people
domestic
are going to want to come to the realization that they want more.
Well,
are we now off in China?
Are
we now off the air? I'm sure we are.
But they cannot put a sheet between us. They cannot black us out. I can still see you.
Yeah.
But my guess is that probably. But
all right, we're going to bring in the guest. Thanks, Eunice. Join us now to talk about the upcoming signing of a Phase 1 trade deal. Michael O'Hanlon, Senior Foreign Policy Fellow at the Brookings Institution. We had Navarro on. And I tried to get him to say he didn't like the deal and didn't get enough, but he said there's some really good things in it and it's going to be signed. Do you believe that, Michael?
I wouldn't be surprised, given the political interest, tying this back to the conversation you had earlier. And by the way, Happy New Year to all of you. It's nice to be on. But I think that President Trump has a powerful incentive to have some kind of a deal this year. The Chinese as well don't really want to put the relationship fundamentally in jeopardy. And by the way, the things they care about most, from my vantage point, protecting their own state assets, trying to exploit intellectual property, trying to favor their own high-tech sector, even if they violate trade rules. I don't see them giving ground in Phase 1 on those matters. They don't really have to, and therefore Phase 1 doesn't cost them or hurt them that much. So for all those reasons, largely symbolic and political on both sides, I would expect there's a pretty high chance of this being, sent forward as expected.
Someone said that this Phase 1 deal really gets pretty close to what we were hoping for in May of last year when it fell apart. And that there were certain things about IP. There was baby steps towards addressing some of those issues.
Baby steps is a good term. And if it weren't so central to not only economic but strategic relations, I might be content with baby steps. But, I'll give President Trump credit for getting the country to realize and the Chinese to realize the economic relationship and the strategic relationship need fixing, need fundamental attention. And it's the way in which China is trying to leap ahead in high-tech sectors, sometimes quite illicitly, sometimes through intellectual property theft. That's happening so fast right at this juncture. That means that baby steps really are just not good enough. So, sure, Phase 1 would be fine, but I think those of us who do defense policy, people who do longer-term economic policy, are much more worried about the bigger steps, not just the baby steps.
Michael, in the next 5 years, do you think there's going to be some radical changes in the way China governs its people? And by that, I mean, we always say here, you can't have personal freedom without economic freedom. You can't have economic freedom without personal freedom. They're trying to do this hybrid system where they have, a capitalist system or a free economic system. They're getting there anyway, hopefully. Can they keep doing that and separate and compartmentalize it and still have the type of control over the people that they have?
I think they can to an extent, but I think it's always going to be a limitation on how strong their economy gets. For all the things that China does well, its per capita income is still less than $10,000 a year. Right. It has huge issues with poverty, with scarcity of resources, and that's not just an environmental issue. That's an industrial issue because they don't have the water they need to do a lot of expansion of industry. They've got wage growth in key parts of the country that have been the areas of major economic growth before, but are now limited by their ability to do things economically on a global scale. So Chinese leaders, I think, are asking themselves the same question that you just posed to me, but also they're not willing to free up politics. What they're willing to do, or what they feel they need to do, is keep the economic machine going well enough that Chinese are content with a strong economy but very limited personal freedoms. That's been their model. It's worked a lot better than most of us would have predicted 20 or 30 years ago. So I'm not going to say that it's about to run out of steam, but it does have a limitation,
But Michael, what you just laid out, this entire case, that sounds like a reason for signing Phase 1, but not necessarily on working on a Phase 2.
It's a good point, Becky, and it does raise the question, does China, does President Trump, do they want to just draw this out so they can still have bragging rights throughout 2020, which, of course, is such a huge year for President Trump, rather than spend the next 9 months with Squawk Box and others asking questions about why haven't you gotten to Phase 2, what are the problems, what are the limitations? So it's almost better for the two sides, in some sense, if Phase 1 is delayed, because it may be all they can get for the foreseeable future. Having said that, I don't make any predictions on the tactics of when this gets finalized, but I do think it's the easier deal by far.
As a national security expert, my new term is unknown unknowns, because, I'm not as worried about the unknowns. It's the unknown unknowns I'm worried about. Do you know, it's not Yogi. That was another giant. Rumsfeld.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Shock and awe me with what the worst unknown could be in 2020, do you think, for markets and for the globe in general?
Well, I still think that Vladimir Putin has a few things up his sleeve in terms of what he might do in Eastern Europe. He knows that we still have long-term aspirations to expand NATO into the former Soviet space. He finds that fundamentally unacceptable. At the moment, he's trying to make nice a little bit, at least give the show or an appearance of making nice with President Zelensky of Ukraine. And they're talking a little bit about resolving the Eastern Ukraine crisis. But I think there's just as high a chance of things getting worse in Eastern Europe rather than better.
Did you see the article that he can't stay in power unless he annexes Belarus, and then he gets another term?
There is that possibility, although he's got 4 more years regardless.
4 more regardless. Okay. Michael, thank you. We appreciate it.
See you all.
We're going to need you in 2020. Hope to see you again. Thanks.
That'd be great. Thanks.
When we return, Gon's great escape. We're going to talk about his flight out of Japan and what it means for foreign executives doing business in Tokyo. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, plunges into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and flows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
New details this morning on Carlos Ghosn's flight from Japan. Lebanon now says that it has received an international wanted notice from Interpol for Ghosn. That story bringing some renewed scrutiny on the Japanese legal system and how international CEOs do business. Joining us right now for more is Jeff Sonnenfeld. He's Yale School of Management Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies, also a CNBC contributor. And Jeff, this story, how do you think this plays out? What does it mean for Japan? What does it mean for executives who might be doing business there? What does it mean for Carlos Ghosn?
Well, this is definitely the drama of the new year and the new decade. And Happy New Year, Becky. It's when you and Joe were talking about with Phil LeBeau earlier this morning, you were saying how uncomfortable it is to be seeming to cheer for the the outlaw. But in fact, we have a long tradition of doing that, from Bonnie and Clyde and Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, The Great Escape itself, or Joe would remember, if not Hannibal Lecter, would remember Dr. What was his name? Richard Kimball from The Fugitive. Is that, as Carlos Ghosn puts it, he's not fleeing justice, but he was escaping injustice. And I think there's a lot of sympathy for whatever he may have done wrong. Is he was not going to be able to muster a reasonable defense with the ridiculous restrictions put on him of the solitary confinement and initially, and they can continually re-jailing him. It says 13 months, and he can't talk to his wife. He can't talk to his son. It's just absurd and hard to meet with his lawyers and to get the facts. So I think there's a lot of sympathy for this, and no extradition is going to happen from Lebanon to Japan.
What does this mean for CEOs or for executives who travel to Japan? Would you warn them that things are more dangerous if they get into trouble there? Does this mean anything, or does this all kind of blow over after time?
With the 99% conviction rate, which is the same as in Russia or China, obviously there's something wrong with the judicial system that the prosecutor always wins the case. And as we can see, that we have a lot of countries. You were just talking about trade issues before the break with Eunice. There's a lot of concern about how people are being caught up in draping the flag around business issues. So we saw that with the Fiat Chrysler deal being scuttled in terms of doing something with Renault that would have brought in Nissan just because of which countries are going to control what. There's a large French stake in Renault. The Japanese were concerned about the French having creeping control over their company Nissan that already Renault had successfully turned around Nissan with a 45% stake, and there was some resentment about that. And as we see that happening, we look at what's happening in China right now, where we have recently 2 Americans detained, unable to seek counsel and get charges against them, and 2 Canadians, of course, they're over a year as a reciprocal retaliation, it seems, for the Canadians detaining in house arrest in that case with the CFO of Huawei. They were seeing international travel issues are some concern. The State Department has put out an intensified warning for people going into China with dual citizenship issues. And yes, this is a concern. Not everybody can.
We've seen it impact business between the United States and China, perhaps, but I wouldn't say that there's been an impact between business taking place between the United States and Japan to this point, would you?
What we're seeing right now is there's a lot of public discussion just in the last 48 hours of concern about the ripple effect coming from Japan, with Japanese officials saying there has to be some reform of the legal system or companies won't be willing to put their A-team players in the country. I don't know if the B-team players will be so happy to be considered that if you're dispensable that you're being put in Japan. But it's not going to be a prime assignment if you're so worried that the only way you get out of the country is to go back in a double base instrument case of being spirited into Turkey and then into some other country. So yeah, I think there'll be a chilling effect on put A-team players into Japan unless there is some reform. And you take a look at this. This is not how the Japanese system works for Japanese. If you look at the Fukushima Daiichi meltdown, where there's tremendous casualties coming out of that nuclear reactor problem, or Takata airbags, we didn't see this kind of punishment happening. Those guys weren't held in solitary confinement in cramped conditions in an unheated cell. In fact, I believe that the 3 executives that the U.S. had criminally indicted for the Takata airbags, where 20 people died and 200 injuries and 80 million cars were recalled and the company went bankrupt, is those guys are still out free in Japan, and Japan hasn't honored the extradition treaty to send them back to the U.S. So it's not reciprocal. It's that foreign executives are being treated differently in Japan, and this is quite stark when you look at gross misconduct in Japan and how Japanese executives are treated, and whatever gray areas there are here, and maybe Carlos Ghosn did do something wrong, but certainly a financial crime is not a capital offense.
Hey, Jeff, what happens next for Carlos Ghosn? He's in Lebanon, but can he leave? What does it mean for his career, for his potential down the road?
Well, that's very interesting. Lebanon is a shaky country. He clearly has great connections with the business elite and the political elite. And that's the way the press has left it. What you don't see in the press this morning is who is this political and business elite? What's that relationship going to be with Hezbollah? Is that it's hard to get a lot done in Lebanon without Hezbollah behind you. Carlos Ghosn is not political in that nature, and I don't know how he's going to navigate that, but he is a folk hero there. Who knows? Maybe he will have a future in politics there. He certainly won't go to France because passing over countries that could extradite him. France claims, we won't honor any extradition. We don't extradite our nationals because he's a national of 3 different countries, passports of Brazil, France, and Lebanon. He's better off just staying in Lebanon. So I don't see how the same ripple effect. I guess he's got about $120 million, so he can live comfortably, minus the 16 of the bail that he reneged on. But he's 64, 65 years old. I'm not sure how much of a global business career he'll still have, but if he would like to have a trial in Lebanon to clear his name, and maybe that can happen. There were some penalties paid in the U.S., and his argument is that's because I couldn't muster my defense with the SEC here, so all they got was the Japanese side of the story. But he'd certainly like to clear his name, and maybe they can hold a trial if Japanese officials. It's quite ironic, to the comic nature of all this, that Japan only heard about this from MTV Lebanon that asked the Japanese ambassador about it in Lebanon. They didn't even know that he'd escaped at that point. So I don't know if the Japanese will cooperate. They're so embarrassed by this. Yeah. It's amazing he's not in some sort of electronic, wasn't on some sort of electronic monitoring that he got out of there the way he did.
Lebanon has a 225-kilometer coast along the Mediterranean, just in case you're wondering. You know what I mean? There could be worse places, I think, to be.
No, I think it sounds pretty good to me, too, Joe. I agree with you.
I was talking to someone about it. It's pretty nice. But and I think it's a little more stable than it used to be 10, 20 years ago, right?
Oh, yeah. It's come a very long way, and it's a beautiful place. And
120 million coastline.
Rich cultural history. Yeah.
All right.
Jeff, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Same to you.
Better than our buddy Assange,
Yeah, stuck in the embassy.
Yeah. All right, coming up.
Apparently, he's not the best house guest.
Oh, yeah, right. He doesn't shower. A bullish call on Tesla. We're going to talk to an analyst who says it's going to be a make or break year for Elon Musk. Squawk Box coming right back.
There you go.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with B.
Bike.
Nope. Banana tree.
Oh, of course. We must have missed it. Although you might not be able to see it, your small actions can have a real impact with Shell. Drive carbon neutral by filling up and using Shell Go Plus today. Make the change. Drive carbon neutral. Shell. Go well. See goplus.shell.com/CO2 for details.
TuneIn is remembering the biggest college sports moments of the decade, like this one from 2011, when UConn point guard Kemba Walker hits the game-winning jumper in the Big East tournament against Pittsburgh.
Here's Walker with 4, stops, moves left, steps back, the jumper, it's good! At the buzzer, and Kemba Walker has done it again!
Search college sports on TuneIn to be there for the moments that go down in history.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn. We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, plunges into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Still to come, the first economic data of the new year. We'll get jobless claims after this quick break. Squawk Box will be right back.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in. Touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
On the goal line, Martin scores and tucks it home.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores.
The action live on TuneIn Premium.
And a move, and a shot, and he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Stock in companies behind some popular products can be a smart way to give a gift that's on everyone's list. Discovering the power of compound interest can be a terrific gift.
This could be more than just $100 if you bought $100 in stock and it doubled or tripled over time.
Hi, I'm Joan London. Today's senior living communities have never been better, and nobody understands your options like the advisors at A Place for Mom. A Place for Mom is a free service to help you find a place that fits your parents' budget, needs, and personalities. Call today. A Place for Mom. You know your family. We know senior living. Together, we'll make the right choice.
Call A Place for Mom to get your free ebook on financing senior care. Call 1-800-211-0451.
After years of overpaying for eye care, I'm ready for a change. Luckily, a VSP individual vision plan is comparable to the vision coverage people get through work. But I can buy it on my own. My plan gives me everything I need. The next business day after enrolling, I can get an eye exam from a VSP network doctor. Followed up by savings on quality glasses and lens enhancements. And for a limited time, VSP members get an extra $40 to spend on select frame brands.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. I'm Jim Urio, and we have breaking data in the form of jobless claims. The number came out at 222,000, slightly worse than the 220 expected. Last month was revised slightly worse too, but just by 2,000, well, to 224 from 222. Continuing claims, 1,728,000, was actually a little worse than before, a little worse than expected as well. The stock market came in relatively buoyant. The S&Ps were up 19 coming in. The 10-year has been hovering around kind of 1.89. It seems like for about 2 weeks now. That's kind of like the magnet, it seems. So, you know, it's the first data of the year. It comes in decent, not great. We're still kind of hovering around 50-year lows in the jobless claims number. The magic recipe here for the stock market, in my opinion, is still numbers that are pretty decent and a Fed that's still relatively dovish. It's light volume today, but the market's feeling pretty good. Back to you, Joe.
All right, Jim, we have our little Twitter moments occasionally, don't we? Do you enjoy those?
We do. I do enjoy those. Thank you for those.
Could be about anything, couldn't it? I guess there's some good things about that service, right? Anyway,
no, there's a ton of good things about Twitter. We get to share a lot of stuff. It's 80% nonsense, but the 20% that's good is really good. You don't agree?
I don't know. The 4-follower hate mail that comes in, why do they do it? I mean, they don't
If you're not getting hate mail, I don't think you're doing. I don't think you're doing it right if you're not getting a hate mail.
You're right. All right, Jim, stay with us. Join us now, Jeff Taylor, co-founder and managing director of Digital Risk. You know what? When you agreed to come on the on the first trading day of the year, you know you're going to get the big questions, Jeff. Can you handle them? What's going to happen this year? What's going to happen this year, do you think?
Well, I look at the housing market this year, and I think we're set up for a fantastic year. I think we're going to look at about a $2 trillion residential market. I think interest rates are going to stay around 3.5, and I think we're going to see two trends that are really going to shape the housing market going forward. First, the millennials are finally going to be dominating the purchase market in the resi market. So they're going to account for about 50% of the new home purchases this year, and that's an age range in the low age of 30 up to about 40. So they're finally getting out of the cities, not renting, moving into the suburbs, and really going to be dominating that market. Secondly, looking for the home builders to have a fantastic year. Right now, the home builders' sentiment confidence is at an all-time high since 1999 at 76%, up 5 points since last month. And they have the millennials coming into the market. That's new home construction. Then they also have the effect of the baby boomers who are looking to downsize in the more planned communities, retirement communities. That's new construction also. So they're set to have a fantastic year.
So the millennials are finally getting to that age, obviously, but the way that they, manifest getting to that age with purchases, it goes to the burbs, or don't they stay urban? I mean, do they definitely do everything the same as prior generations, or won't there be some significant differences from what we know already?
So I agree with you. If we look at a price point perspective, is right now what they can really afford to buy with the increasing low interest rates is they can buy in the burbs, and they were kind of looking at that 1,800 to 2,000 square foot house. Plus, there's a new dynamic that wasn't here 20 years ago. That flexibility to work from home, where you can telecommute 3-5 days a week, that's allowing them to have the jobs, the lifestyles that they want, live in the burbs, still have the upside of a great house that's something they can afford. So that's really the dynamic that's kind of driving them back out into the burbs with the flexibility and the life that they're looking for.
Okay, so then that's one trend to look at. Can you regionally tell us what's strong, what's going to be weak, where there's oversupply, where there's maybe high-end inventory but no low-end inventory? These are all the things that we heard about all last year.
Yeah, so I think I'll start nationally. I think this is going to be the tightest inventory year in the last 5 years for some of the reasons that we just talked about right now. I think you're actually going to see nationally bidding wars. So what I mean by that is, for every offer that's made in 2020, I'm looking for about 30% of those to be contested in a bidding war, compared to 2019, where you had 1 in 10 that was in that dynamic. Regionally, obviously, real estate's very location driven, right? So I think you're seeing a lot of people still come to the South, Charlotte, Charleston. Those are going to be hot areas. Areas like Florida, where you're going to have a little bit of maybe oversupply. Some of the higher end market, called that 3 to 5 million. I live in Miami, Florida. We're still seeing that sort of soft right now, and maybe that'd be a little bit soft.
All right, Jeff, thank you.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead,
is this
Jim?
dependent on rates as well? What happens if we do start to see a little bit of inflation, long end rates shoot higher and mortgage rates go higher? Does that interfere with your thesis? Is your thesis strong enough to outweigh that?
No, I think my thesis is very strong, because right now I don't see, even if the 10-year rallies over 2, which is going to be highly unlikely, I still think that you're going to see it from a mortgage perspective. You're still going to see in that 3.5 to 3.8, which is about a point less than it was this time a year ago. So I think you're going to have a very, very strong housing market throughout 2020. Not to mention, that the first half of this year, there were so many people that wanted to refinance loans where there just wasn't enough capacity in the system for the banks and the lenders to actually refinance those loans, that you've got a lot of pent-up demand going through at least the first half of this year to create a very strong and fluid market.
Okay, we're gonna leave it there. Jeff, thanks. Yurio, thanks. We'll see you again. Happy New Year. All right. Okay.
When we come back, Tesla shares rising. We will bring you a new bullish analyst call right after this break. Squawk Box will be right back.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Missing those moments at family meals?
Who's up for seconds?
Oh, yes, please.
Filter out background noise and turn up the things you love for less, with up to 15% off Boots Hearing Care's best-selling hearing aids. Plus, spread the cost with interest-free monthly payments. Boots, let's feel good. Offer ends 31st of January 2020. Interest-free is subject to status. Over 18s only. Terms and conditions apply. Phonak Marvel hearing aids only.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Right now, is there a reason? I like that song, but these eyes.
These eyes?
I don't know.
Because it rhymes with Ives, who's our next guest, Dan Ives. Ives.
These
eyes.
Making that yeah. What do you think, Dan?
I like the song.
Good way to usher music the new just year. For you.
It's a good drum roll into 2020.
Yeah, we like it.
These eyes.
I don't know if that's why I'm making that up.
Is that why?
Is it really?
That's awesome.
Synchronicity.
I wish I would have. We've been doing it for months
and we didn't notice.
I wish I would have thought that up. Good job, Evans.
Dan, it's great to see you.
Thank you for being here. We'll see you later. We got to go to break then.
No, we don't.
Okay, no.
Tesla stock continuing to climb as we start the new year. In fact, if you check things out today, you're going to see the shares are up again this morning. Up about 2.1%, another $8.78 to $427.11. And a new note this morning, Wedbush Securities says that the Chinese market could be worth up to $100 a share for Tesla. Dan Ives is here, joining us right now to talk more about that and why he's thinking that. Why do you think the Chinese market is going to be such a big deal for Tesla?
I mean, it's really on two sides. It's the production and the demand side. Giga 3 is really the linchpin for success for Tesla over the next 12 to 18 months. And I think it really comes down to demand. That could be another 100, 150K units per year. That's why right now, a big part of what you're seeing in the stock is China. I think China's worth $75 to $100 per share. Now it's really a prove me story.
What do you know about what's happening in the factory there? People have raised questions about whether things are being manufactured there or whether they're really being manufactured here and kind of put together there. What have you seen? Have they let anybody in?
Yeah, in terms of component parts, and we've obviously done a lot of work over there as well as in Asia. I think right now, even though 34% of component parts are Chinese made, that's going to continue to increase. I think it really comes down from an investor perspective. It's what's the production look like? 1,000 cars per week. Mm-hmm. Right now, they could be on the trajectory to 2,000 to 3,000 by the end of the year. That's what right now in Tesla, ultimately, take out U.S. and Europe. Going forward, fork in the road. If they could be successful in China right now, it looks like they can. That's why I think right now, in our opinion, China is really the hearts and lungs of the bull story for Musk and company going forward.
You know, I want to talk to you about a bunch of the other predictions that you have for this year. There's some very interesting ones. First of all, one of the issues you are concerned about is this new law that just went into effect in California that will require companies like Uber and Lyft and others to pay their contractors as full-time employees, or to treat them as employees rather than contractors. What do you think that means?
Yeah, I think AB5, it's really a gut punch to the gig economy, not just Uber and Lyft. And fundamentally, the whole worker contract issue, which just got put, in California, it's going to be fought in the courts. But if you look at what that could do, it's a major change to the business models. And that's why right now, I think that's an $8 to $10 overhang on Uber itself in terms of AB5. So this is something, in our opinion, we're following very closely, because AB5, and especially how it plays out in the courts, that's going to be significant.
What do you think happens in the courts?
Look, ultimately, we believe in the courts. It is ruled unconstitutional, and ultimately it does not get implemented. That's at least in terms of how we see, and that's our view. If we thought AB5 is going to be implemented in its current form, it's hard to be bullish on these names, in our opinion.
So if you think that's the case, should people buy right now if it's an $8 to $10 overhang in the stock?
Yeah, in my opinion, that's more the table pounder in terms of these gig names to buy into 2020. I look at Uber and specifically Lyft. That's when I think fundamentals are going to increase. Right now, it's a glass half empty view, a lot of risk out there in terms of perceived on the names. But I think fundamentally and valuation-wise, these are names that go much higher if we sit here a year from now, especially our view on AB5 and how that ultimately shakes out.
However, you also have one of your predictions for this year that Uber winds up having to really scale back on Uber Eats.
Yeah, that's a major overhang. If you look right now, that one of the biggest overhangs besides AB5 is that food delivery business. It was viewed as an asset if you go back to when they came public. But right now, in terms of what we're seeing with Grubhub, DoorDash, and others, so much pressure on profitability. And if you look for
because there's so much competition.
Because there's competition, take rates continue to be under pressure. And for a company where Dara has basically put out there 2021 profitability, in my opinion, they're going to have to significantly curtail it or potentially shut it down in terms of Uber Eats.
What about the FANG names and which ones you think will do well in 2020? You think Apple's still going to be a big winner?
Yeah, I think Apple, we sit here a year from now north of 350. I just continue to believe in terms of all of our work that 5G super cycle is real. And I think it comes down to that install base. It's a valuation that continues to, I think, re-rate higher on services. But I think fundamentally in 5G, you could talk about Qualcomm and others. Best 5G play in our opinion is Apple. But then you also look at a name like Amazon. I think the reason that's going to work is really some of the parts on the cloud piece. I think the other theme, it's part why we're so bullish on Microsoft, but it's that cloud piece. I think AWS cloud piece for Amazon is going to be the next leg of that bull thesis.
So that's the next leg of it, but you also think that Microsoft is the winner in the next go-around of the cloud wars.
No doubt. I mean, if I look right now, it's going to be a two-horse race, AWS and Microsoft. I think the AWS is going to help Amazon re-rate. But in terms of the golden touch, who's going to win the next phase of cloud? Forget Google. I think it's Microsoft and Nadella. And in our opinion, that's a stock that continues to go higher because in this next phase of clouds, you'll only have 30% of workloads in the cloud today. When that goes to 55% in the next 2 years, it's Redmond and Nadella that win that. And that's why Microsoft, in our opinion, continues to be our best cloud play, just like Apple's our 5G play.
But you still like Amazon shares because you think that the cloud play there will continue to be a reason to buy the stock?
It's really numbers. If I look at $300 billion has been spent on the cloud, call it the last 6 years. Mm-hmm. The next 3 years, $700 billion. The numbers are so big that right now it's going to lift both Microsoft and Amazon. I think if you look at the AWS piece, that's going to be something Amazon's going to get aggressive, not just organically, but through acquisitions. So that's why in terms of the transformational trends, it's really cloud. And that's also why one of our predictions, I think Google is going to look to acquire a big cloud player. You look at names like Workday and ServiceNow and others.
You think they could get that passed with all the questions about already looking from regulators saying maybe we want to break up, or from politicians, I should say, saying we want to break up some of these companies? Would they be allowed to do a purchase like that?
Well, I think that would obviously be under scrutiny. But I do believe in terms of FANG names, you will start to see them get more aggressive on acquisitions rather than more defensive. And I just go back to
Is that smart or is that tone deaf given the regulatory environment and given the political environment? environment today.
It's a great point, and I think no doubt they could take heat in the kitchen. But I go back to covering Microsoft back in the late 90s. I think Gates will say to this day one of their biggest strategic mistakes is when they were under the bright spotlight, they went defensive. They didn't acquire, especially in mobile and some other areas, and it hurt them for decade plus. So I do believe these FANG names are going to get more aggressive on M&A, even though you could say there's going to be a lot more heat in the Beltway.
But you think it's the right thing to do?
But I think it's the right thing to do strategically, because right now you look, healthcare, banking, cloud, you're going to continue to see these names go on the offensive rather than the defensive, and I think that's going to be a tone set early on in terms of potential mega merger.
Are there any stocks you don't like in your versus coverage at this point?
Yeah, front and center is Slack, just because I view it goes to the Microsoft theme. Going against Microsoft right here is going to be extremely difficult for Slack. That's why I think that's one where growth's overstated. We can have a sell rating on that. And I view it as there's not going to be all winners. There's going to be inherent losers. And I think where Slack is negative. And even when I look at content, in terms of how positively positioned I view at Disney, it's more cautious on the Netflix, just given where they sit from a content and sub perspective.
Wait, you're more cautious on Disney or on Netflix?
On Netflix.
On Netflix because of Disney.
Because of Disney. When I look at Iger and Disney and I look at sub growth and what's happened there in content, in terms of FANG names, that's why Apple, Amazon, Google, to me, stick out more bullish than a Facebook, just given some of those content headwinds. And I think sub growth that they're going to have to face, especially with what I view as pricing hubris in terms of the current model.
All right, so of all the names you do like, which one is your favorite? Do you have a top pick?
Top pick, front and center right here is Apple. Even though I view it as, you say stock's up 8%, that's just the first part of what I view as a massive re-rating. That's where I think $350 to $400 as we go into next year is the one that sticks out.
Dan, thank you. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
And it's nice that we finally realized you have your own theme song.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
New year, new decade. Sounds like a perfect time to start anew with a subscription to TuneIn Premium. Skip the ads and listen more in 2020 with commercial-free music and news from MSNBC, CNBC, Fox News Talk, and more. Sports fans, we got you covered too with every NFL, NBA, NHL, and college sports game. Not to mention Major League Baseball come spring training. Don't settle for same this year. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Be better informed, be better prepared.
The Better Network is on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search BETR and start hanging out with me and my guys in the desert weekday afternoons. The Better Network is now on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
I think that's cleaner than it's ever been after
A lot of workers, although I gotta say, one street over, a lot of confetti still.
Confetti, but better than
nasty
San
stuff.
Francisco type stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's everywhere sometimes out there. Anyway, it's sad. The people, if I say San Francisco type stuff, they know what I'm talking about. It's great that a city suddenly is known for, human excrement. Anyway, President Trump's re-election campaign says...
We've had that here.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's what we normally... Yeah, but we don't have tents. It's just lining every street in downtown, the most beautiful city previously in the world. President Trump's re-election campaign says it raised $46 million in the fourth quarter of 2019. It heads into 2020 with about $103 million in cash on hand. A Trump campaign press release says the fourth quarter haul was its best one yet. It's also more than any fourth quarter total announced by any Democrat so far, although this morning people are feeling the burn. Keep it up. Bernie Sanders' campaign said it raised about $35 million in the fourth quarter. He sits at the top of the Democratic fundraising leaderboard. Someone wrote into me, "You just wait. You're going to be crying when he gets a nomination." And I said, that is my most fervent desire. And there could not be anything I could wish for any more than that. The campaign of former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg says that it raised about $25 million in the quarter. And entrepreneur Andrew Yang, people still giving Andrew Yang money, more than $16 million in the fourth quarter. Can't you say something? Say something for me.
I was shocked to see that Bernie actually raised, I think it was $34.5 million.
Bernie might be the nominee.
He's definitely picked up some steam. Anybody who had questions about it, because he had a heart attack, and people thought at that point they were going to count him out of the race, but that is not the case. I think what stunned me the most from it, the average giving total was $18.50 or something. Right. So he made that much money from a lot of people.
So they get beyond the heart attack, but not that he honeymooned in the Soviet Union. Anyway, a little more than half an hour till the opening bell on Wall Street. Joining us now to talk about what to expect today, this month, this quarter, and this year, Komal Sri Kumar, president of Sri Kumar Global Strategies. You're finally going to be wrong. You're finally going to be wrong. You are finally going to be wrong. You're finally going to, right? Or wrong? We're 192. Where are we going? Back to 1?
Joe, you've said that. It's been fun listening to you over the last few years. But where are we on the 10-year today? We are below 189. We are 188. We have reversed back the increase in yields that we saw a couple of weeks ago. We are back, and the 10-year has a tough time getting beyond 195. And I don't think that's going to change during calendar year 2020 either, Joe.
Yeah. In fairness, we've had most of our guests today say that no big, and I don't know if they're going to be right, but most of them have said we're going to stay at 2 or below. So no one's talking about 3 anymore, Sri, and so they've all come around to your way of thinking there. Whenever you make your point, though, I always get depressed because these aren't great reasons for why you see rates staying low. Most of them are because of a continued sort of a global malaise in terms of growth.
Yes, that is a part of it, but it is also, Joe, that the U.S. population is getting older. We don't have enough immigrants who are young and who can add to consumption. We have other headwinds which are structural, which we cannot take care of, which is why even if the fiscal deficit increases in 2020, as is expected, and more of treasury issues coming into the market, I think the safe haven flow is also going to help overall. Look, for instance, on the safe haven side, what happened with the phase 1 of the trade accord. President Trump has announced a January 15th signing. There has been silence from the Chinese side. They have not confirmed the date. And the Chinese have, over the weekend, instead looked for more of trust from the U.S. side. That's their response. Nothing about the signing. And also, you had a great interview with Peter Navarro on Tuesday, and he told you that they are waiting for the translation of the Chinese version into English. So I wonder whether anybody knows in English what it says in terms of the trade accord. I can't see where the optimism is coming from. If those fail, then once again, you're going to see the 10-year yield go down. And you said people no longer talk about 3%. I am really looking for below 150.
We're looking for below 150. And whenever you're on and you talk about all these things and I listen, and we put up stock charts while you're talking that show 28% last year gains, 165 points on the Dow today. You're painting a picture that explains low yields, but it certainly doesn't explain what's going on in the stock market unless it's a big bubble.
Well, you always have, at the end of an economic cycle, you have this divergence between the equities and bonds and what they are saying. Look at 2007. December, we had the Great Recession begin. Stock market hit a record high in October of 2007. The bond market had already inverted, and the yield curve was starting to steepen toward the end of 2007 in anticipation of an eventual recovery and the Fed cut. We see the same thing happening in 2019. We had an inversion followed by a steepening. So the similarities with 2007 on the bond market versus equities, Joe, are really worrisome to me in terms of how close they are in terms of the similarity. So equity is doing well when the bond yields are also going down is not unusual. It typically happens at the end of the cycle.
How close to the end of the cycle?
Becky, on that, the timing is always variant. I would say from the past, from 2001 recession, 2007 recession, it is somewhere in the range of about 6 months. So I'm still looking for the recession beginning by the middle of 2020. But by past experience, Becky, you do not know that you are in a recession until you are well into it. Recall what happened in the first half of 2008. We were in recession. The equity markets rallied. Go figure. So that's what I think is likely to happen again. So going to Joe's question, the equities do well continuing into the initial part of 2020, but that should not give you comfort if you're a medium-term investor.
Sri, great to see you. Everybody,
it's great to see you both.
Happy New Year, everybody. Right now, it's time for Squawk on the Street.
Now it's clear to me what I should have done. But the hindsight is 20/20 vision. If I knew back then what I know now.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Welcome to Squawk on the Street. I'm Scott Wapner with Morgan Brennan and Mike Santoli. We're live from the New York Stock Exchange. Carl, Jim, and David have the morning off. Let's take a look at futures for the first trading day of the new year. And there you go. That's what China's stimulus looks like for the U.S. market. Looks like we're going to set new records right off the open. Dow would open higher by 165. The S&P higher by 18. Stocks coming off their best year since 2013. S&P 500 was up better than 28%. And as I said, those China easing measures overnight giving a boost to global markets, including here in the United States. Our roadmap starts with exactly that. The bulls on the run. After a monster 2019 rally, Wall Street looks to keep it going in the new year. Stocks set to open the decade sharply higher.
Plus, Carlos Ghosn mystery. An Interpol arrest warrant now out for the ousted Nissan boss who fled from Japan to Beirut earlier this week.
And Tesla on a tear, shares rallying again ahead of the open as one analyst issues a major price target boost, predicting strong EV growth this year.
Well, we begin with the markets looking for a strong start to the new year. This after we saw the Dow rise 22% in 2019. The S&P 500 up almost 29%. Well, the NASDAQ, 35% was the gain for the tech-heavy NASDAQ. All right, so here we go. Let's get it started.
Slight pause at the end of last year, nothing to speak of. It's been a bit of a tradition in recent years, a pretty good up day on the first trading day of January. It doesn't determine the rest of the year, but it really seems like the trends that took hold at the very end of last year are intact. You have a good fourth quarter return as we did. It tends to carry over a little bit, even though market seems like it's getting a little stretched and people getting a little comfortable with the bullish case. I say that only in the near term, though, because Wall Street is not predicting big up years in general. It's more or less saying, we can tack on a little bit. So market doesn't always just go gently in one direction or another for long.
Yeah, we got 2 more days technically of this Santa Claus rally, right? But already many of the notes out from traders, market watchers, et cetera, are saying, we're really in earnest going to see how we're starting this year, starting next week. And then, of course, earnings is going to be such a big focus when we get to the middle of the month and you start to get some of those numbers. One of those key questions, and I know we've talked about it quite a bit, is are the expectations in terms of earnings for 2020 too high?
Yeah, exactly. Earnings are all over the map, too. As we heard from the many guests who came on with us last week, earnings growth is going to be 0. No, earnings growth is going to be 5%. No, it's going to be 8%. No one has any clue on what the earnings picture is going to look like, and maybe that's why it's hard to get a forecast
the published much far out. Are still high single-digit percentage gains, right? They're still up near 9%. Almost everyone believes that's, I think, generally too high, but that's not a given in every single year that they always start out too high. I don't think anyone thinks earnings across the board are going to be strong, and that's why I think when you're close to flat in earnings, it means some companies are growing a lot and some are actually shrinking in terms of profits. So I do think that's why it's created this kind of bifurcated market. Growth stocks, that's the big question, is do we get some kind of rebalancing, rotation type action? The huge growth stocks that carried things largely toward the end of last year, it's not really about this year's earnings. It's about very long-term earnings trends. So do you see a rotation into the more cyclical stocks? January tends to be a good month for that. People start to get more optimistic about what the economy could do and cyclicals outperform.
Yeah, which of course brings us back to this whole phase 1 trade deal, what trade looks like in 2020, and of course what the details ultimately of that are, since we've gotten
details, schmeetails. Just give me the signing already. That's what Wall Street wants, right?
Yeah, and then also, of course, and you mentioned it to start the hour, the fact that we are continuing to see monetary stimulus, and most recently from the PBOC overnight, lowering its reserve requirement ratio for all the banks, and I think there's that expectation that we're going to continue to have this accommodative policy, even as the Fed just holds pat, perhaps, this year, the world over.
That's a good point. It is a reminder, if nothing else, that central banks around the world, global easing, stimulus still remains in play. China is such a big story on the trade front and their economy front that if they can keep their economy from falling completely out of bed, which they've been managing to do throughout the entire trade issue by virtue of stimulus, et cetera, then you have a market picture that looks pretty good. And today and this morning is a pretty darn good reminder of that.
When we were talking about fears of a trade war and what it meant for companies and the economy, what we meant was things are going to get ugly in China for the economy. I mean, that's really the bottom line when you brought it back to the fortunes of global companies. It was about, can that economy continue to contribute more than its share of growth? And I do think now what you've seen with the trade agreement, the de-escalation, the reduction of tariff expectations, and the easing moves is they're trying to figure it out, and they maybe have.
But of course, to both of your points, that also speaks to the ripple effects of China on so much of the rest of the world. You could point to some of the PMI numbers we got overnight too. Still not great. And the fact that, given what we've seen happen in emerging markets, the fact that so many strategists have come on now and said maybe emerging markets, especially with trade deals coming into play, could actually look attractive in the year ahead.
Maybe a bit of, I don't necessarily want to call it an ominous sign, but that story today in the Wall Street Journal, they're exclusive on the conference board, their first read, that CEOs move up now recession fear as their number one risk for 2020. So if you're assuming that you get these trade deals and it's all of a sudden going to open the corporate spigot and you're just going to have money flowing and CapEx and this and that, maybe you have to, maybe rethink that?
Yes, although I was going to say in the fine print, but it's in the article. The survey was taken in September and October, okay? That was before you got the trade deal. And now there's some commentary in there saying, well, we don't really think CEO psychology has changed very much. And guess what? Market's up 10% since then. CEO psychology is much more bright than it was when they took that survey. That's my thought on it.
All right. Well, let's let the check writing match the thought. Let's see what actually happens. Right. All right. Joining us now, J.P. Morgan Asset Management's David Kelly, Mayflower Advisors, Larry Glazer. It's good to see you both. Happy New Year. David, what do you think? Where are we going to go this year in the stock market?
Well, it's not going to be as good as last year. I think we can still probably, certainly for the first half of the year, move up. I think that what's really going on here is the Fed put in a relatively gratuitous set of rate cuts last year, but what that did is it put the yield on cash below inflation, and that means it's very hard to find another place domestically to put your money, and that's causing this flow of money into equities. I think that's really what's behind what we've seen in the last few months. I think the economy remains slow but stable, and that's probably allowing the stock market to continue to move up. But, longer term, people need to look longer term, and valuations are higher than average, and that means, muted returns over the next decade.
Larry, does that make sense to you, or do you have a different view?
I think it makes a lot of sense. Look, I think that as we turn the page into the new decade, into the new year, there's a tremendous sense of optimism on the heels of strong stock market gains and obviously the longest U.S. economic expansion in modern history. With that said, I think we always look forward to a chance for reflection in the new year, and reflection starts with your portfolio. There's two dynamics we look forward to every January. One is the so-called January effect, the end of that tax loss selling in December, much more muted than normal. We expect a more muted January bounce because of it. The other dynamic, of course, is window dressing. Window dressing was more pronounced last year. We saw Apple and Microsoft leading the market, 15% of the S&P returns. That is pushing people into technology names, losing their heads. Portfolio reflection means looking more broadly, looking outside. Today, PBOC, that injection of liquidity, emerging themes should be emerging markets. I agree with that. It means international. It means looking more broadly outside of last year's leadership, and it means rotation into 2020. That's what I'm much more excited about.
David, one of the things you highlight in your recent note is the focus on, or the fact that you're focused on some longer-term concerns. What are they and why?
Yep. Yeah, one of them is population growth. On December 30th, one of the quietest days of the year, the Census Bureau released numbers which showed the slowest percentage population growth in a century, since the influenza of 1918. We've got a declining growth, a declining immigration, and we've got the lowest birth rate in 32 years. And if you feed this into economic models, what it suggests is we're locking in 2% growth. We're not going to be able to do better than that unless we have more immigration or some huge surge in capital spending that we don't expect here. So we've got slow U.S. growth. And if you look at the end of, we ended the last decade with international equities looking a lot cheaper than U.S. equities. I think one of the keys for the decade ahead is making sure you've got enough international exposure. I understand people's nervousness and the disappointment in the last few years. Make sure you have that because they are cheaper and the rest of the world will grow faster than the U.S. in the years ahead.
Yeah, I think, by the way, I think David makes a really good point that diversification doesn't mean owning Apple or Microsoft. It means owning other companies, it means owning other countries, other industries. The rotation that we saw in energy names coming in, I think, is a sign of things to come. It's about growth, not just about multiple expansion. Last year, tech was all about multiple expansion. We need to look more broadly, wait for the earnings to come out to see if the fundamentals can catch up with the stock market performance that we saw last year.
David, though, just on that idea that we kind of maybe stuck in a 2% track, the 2.22 backdrop has been pretty good for financial assets, right? 2% growth, 2% treasury yields, give or take, 2% inflation. So does that just mean that we keep kind of revaluing incrementally higher in that type of environment?
Only for a while, because there is a squeeze on profits going up. The good news is I think we can probably avoid a recession over the next year. This is a very stable, slow-growing economy. The bad news for profits is that we are seeing some growth in wages, and that's nice for workers, but it is squeezing those profit margins. So, yes, from a financial perspective, stocks look attractive, but I think profit growth will be low single digits in the year ahead. And, if you have any bump in the road in terms of demand, it could be worse than that. And so I think that there are some limits here. So people just need to be careful. We shouldn't get too giddy. And the stock market's really telling you of an economy that's better than the one that we really have.
Larry, going back to the point you just made about multiple expansion and what earnings need to tell us or confirm in terms of the fundamentals, what happens if that doesn't happen? Where does the market go if you see those earnings fall short?
look, there's no doubt by the end of last year, it was getting priced into the market. And David made a really good point early on, which was there was $2 to $3 trillion worth of cash that was getting pushed off the sidelines as money market yields were coming down. As that money really started to accelerate towards the end of last year, and by the way, it may continue into this year, that money's got higher expectations. So if the earnings aren't there, stocks ultimately will track those earnings. But I think when you really dig into the weeds, you're going to see certain areas of the market that may have been fundamentally pushed up in valuation. Low volatility, for example, was one area that became a great theme. It made a lot of sense. It was very defensive. But you can't hide your way into prosperity. You've got to have the earnings growth. You can't just have the multiple expansion. And by the way, I think going into an election year, we'd have to be insane to take this market or this economy for granted. At the end of the day, it's all about the fundamentals. And all the liquidity is really great, and the liquidity really helps, and liquidity has driven us so far. And we should send a gift basket to Fed Chairman Jay Powell for last year, but we need the fundamentals to maintain really strong and pro-growth policies to enable that.
Gotcha. Leave it there. Guys, thank you, Larry and David. We'll talk to you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Coming up, Carlos Ghosn as a fugitive. The latest on the former Nissan chairman fleeing from Japan to Lebanon. And taking another look at the futures, poised for a pop in the major averages to start this first day of 2020, at least in terms of trading. More Squawk on the Street live from Post 9 at the NYSE when we return.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly